be the leader for all. We ask, dear Lord, that you let us be excellent stewards over the finances you have given this great city. Let it meet each and every need we have, for nothing is too hard for you to do, dear Lord. We ask that you bless the families that are represented here today who sacrificed their time to serve your people. Give a special blessing to the families they have left behind to serve your people. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Councilman Saleo, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Place your hand over your heart. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, tonight the student speaker is it Chloe Solis? Who will be giving her speech later. And we have two presentations tonight. You want to go down together, or do you want to?
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Okay. The first one is for Mr. Don Witt. It's the Neighborhood Courage Award. If Mr. Witt could come down. Thank you for the courage. Mr. Witt, on April 15th, 2009, noticed three male individuals loading property into a vehicle from a neighbor's garage. When he realized his neighbors were being burglarized, he immediately called the sheriff's station to report the suspicious activity. He continuously observed the actions of the suspects while waiting for deputy sheriffs to arrive at the location. After the suspects fled the scene prior to the arrival of deputy sheriffs, Mr. Witt courageously followed after them in his own vehicle. I'm just astonished you followed after them. And was able to provide deputies with an excellent vehicle description and license plate number, which helped the apprehension of the suspects. Whereas Mr. Witt selflessly assisted with a subsequent investigation and led to the arrest and conviction of a total of 3 suspects, as well as the recovery of nearly all of the victims' property. And were it not for his observation and courage to report the crime, the burglars would not have been apprehended. Obviously, you stuck yourself out there, and obviously, I'm glad you're here.
So am I.
It is that type of courage that would eliminate all the crime in this community.
Well, we've got a wonderful little neighborhood. It's peaceful, quiet, and we all know each other, and we all protect each other. And when I came around the corner and saw those people burglarizing that house, I knew they didn't belong there. So the minute they spotted me, they zoomed off down the street, and I followed them to make sure I got the license number. They got caught at J and 30th. Unlucky for them, because I pulled up in back of them and got a description of them. And I just want to thank the Sheriff's Department. Jeff Williams and Jeff Skelly and Jeff Bishop did one heck of a job. Within 7 hours, they had those guys in cuffs and they were in jail.
You're going to be crazy to commit a crime in Lancaster.
Thank
you. Thank you very much. And the next award will be by the Vice Mayor Smith, who will also tell you a little bit about it, and that it's an ongoing award we'll continue to do from now until the end of time.
So, this is our inaugural award. You know, there's a lot of people out there that dedicate themselves to trying to get the apartments. I know the mayor and I have been talking about this community thrives more when there's arts involved. And so we wanted to start this award to sort of highlight those people that have been a little bit more dedicated.
I thought this was my microphone. Thanks. Thank you, ma'am. So we wanted to highlight those. They could be artists, they could be performers, but especially those that have dedicated themselves to getting the arts out there to the community. Now, the recipient today that we're going to give to, one of their main focuses I think since 1989 with ALPAC, has been the Children's Youth Program. Now, that has been one of my favorite, too. When you see these little kids coming from Little Rock, from Palmdale, from Lancaster, that have never been in a theater before, never heard an orchestra, never seen a play, I mean, it's just amazing. And I don't know, how many of you have been to one of those youth performances? Yeah, isn't it? It's just amazing when you see the kids and the excitement. And we take my daughter all the time, and we try to go there. So this person has been dedicated to a lot of things like that, dedicated to ALPAC. And so this award was created for people who spread the arts and contribute. Now, so the first recipient, first I got to give you the name of the award. Okay? And when you get the name of the award, you might guess who got it. So this is our first award. And the name of the award is the Louis V. Bozigian Gift of the Arts Award. And it goes to Lou Bozigian. He can speak. He's been mayor before, so I know he knows. He's used to this.
First of all, I'd like to thank the people that are responsible for what he thinks I've done. I haven't done it alone. I've tried. I've helped with the performing arts and other arts over the years. But we had a great staff at the Parks and Recreation. The councils have been very supportive, the past and the present. And we have a terrific board of directors. And we just expanded them from 5 to 11. And Ron called me and talked to me about this award. And he said, I'm thinking on an award I'm initiating. What do you think? So he told me about it. I said, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. He said, well, are you coming to the next council meeting? I said, well, I really don't come to the council meeting often. I read about it, and I could talk to you gentlemen and ladies sometimes. So I don't think I'm coming. He said, you have to come. I said, why? Because you're getting the first award. So anyway, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Lou.
Okay. All speaker cards must be filled out and submitted prior to the agenda item being called. This same rule applies if you wish to speak on a non-agendized items at the end of the meeting. Following this process will allow us to conduct a timely and orderly meeting. Thank you. Let's go on to the redevelopment agency calendar. Anything to be removed?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Move that we adopt the consent calendar for the agency.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. Moving on to the council consent calendar. Let's remove item CC7. Is there anything else to be removed?
Yes, CC6 we have a speaker's card on. If there's nothing else, I'll move. You have something to remove, Councilman? If not, I'll move that the consent calendar be adopted as currently comprised.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's unanimous. Moving on to CC6.
CC6, Teresa Malone.
Teresa Malone.
Removing it from the calendar, sir?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you removing it from the calendar, sir?
It's already been removed, and now we're going to address it. So you can speak to it if you'd like, okay?
Oh, I'm glad it's raining.
Hey, did you get that up yet?
Working.
Did you get the turbine up yet?
Pardon?
Did you get the windmill up yet?
No, I have to get this approved before I can start the planning process.
You know, I might beat you to it if you don't hurry.
I've got my deposit down. You got your deposit down?
No, I'm
think
still
they're
trying
gonna
to
go
talk
with
my
me
wife
first,
into it.
I think they'll go with me first then.
Okay.
I was hoping you would approve it today so I could get this started before, Halloween, which apparently seems to be all my home improvement goal dates, because that's when I got my yard finished.
You got my vote.
Yeah, now if everybody else could just vote on it,
Okay.
then I could have my guy come in, like tomorrow and start the planning process.
Are you talking to the city about having a press conference?
I was going to wait until I had a date scheduled for the installation.
Okay.
There's a little prep work that needs to be done. A pad has to be poured and the pole has to be put up before the windmill can actually go on top.
Okay.
And
like to come out
yes,
and watch
I
it.
will call for a press conference.
I'd like to come out and see how you do it, okay?
I don't know whether they're going to use a crane and carry it over the house, or if they're going to use a forklift and drive it, because you can drive a car beside my house.
Give me a call when you do it, all right? I mean, I'd rather see your mistakes rather than me make them, all right?
Would it be all right if I sent you an email, sir?
Okay.
I seem to be a little bit better at that.
All right. Good.
But it's not going to be voted on today?
No, we are voting on it right
Oh, you are voting on it. All right. Then in my 1 minute and 45 seconds that I have
No,
left...
you can have more time.
That's okay. Ever since I got out of the military, I thought that doing my job and helping others was the way to help my country. This windmill will help my country. And since I got crippled by a kidney disease 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd ever be able to do it again. And I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any
Move,
discussion? We'll close the public hearing. Any discussion?
Move to adopt CC6.
Second that.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. We're going to be a windmill city. Okay, I'm going to recuse myself because my wife owns the property in the area, and the vice mayor will take care of this one.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that the mayor's left the room, and I now have the chair. Do I hear any motions on CC7?
Move adoption CC7.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for a vote. Unanimous with Mr. Pierce recusing himself. Let the record reflect the mayor is back in the room, and I've turned the chair back over to him.
Thank you. Moving on to the public hearings. Public hearing number 1, Barbara Boswell will do the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The purpose of the public hearing is for Council to consider amending its fee schedules for index adjustments and other minor changes. The financial stability puzzle has many pieces. Some pieces are related to expenditures and keeping expenditures in line with resources, and others are related to revenues. A key policy in prudent financial management is ensuring that fees for services keep pace with the cost of providing those services. One of the ways to ensure that they do is to adjust them annually based on the Consumer Price Index. Staff has reviewed the CPI for 2008 and determined the annual change to be a 3.5% increase. Based on previously approved direction from Council, it is our recommendation that fees for services, which include building permit and inspection fees, planning fees, and other discretionary fees, be adjusted by that 3.5% increase. Development impact fees are assessed on new development to collect fees for infrastructure that is needed as a result of that development. These fees are adjusted annually by the Construction Cost Index, as this index is more reflective of the costs related to that infrastructure. For 2008, the CCI change was a 7% increase, as reported by the Engineering News Record. It is staff's recommendation that the development impact fees be adjusted equivalent to the CCI change. Copies of the proposed fee schedules have been provided to the Antelope Valley Building Industry Association for their review. I spoke with a representative this afternoon, and they are taking a neutral position with regards to the increase in fees. They are interested, however, in reaching out and meeting with us to discuss issues such as timing of payment of fees and how we might partner and work together in the future. In addition to these changes, there are several new fees being proposed. These fees are recommended to better track activity that is currently being done by staff. They include the fees that are needed to implement the food service grease inspections and on-site industrial waste permits previously adopted by council. Lastly, staff has been working closely with Animal Care and Control with regards to our contract costs of services. As part of our efforts, we have completed a comparison of our animal licensing fees with those of Palmdale and unincorporated LA County. It was determined that our fee schedule was not consistent in all was consistent in all areas with the exception of altered and unaltered dogs. It is our recommendation that these fees be adjusted to bring our fees in line with those of our neighbors. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Let's open the public hearing. There's one speaker card, Arnold Rodeo.
There's one fee that's a new fee that I think should get a little special consideration considering the history of runaway movie production. The city of Los Angeles and other areas have been streamlining and reducing fees for movies, commercials, things like that that are filmed in their area. We are now going to implement a new fee, SO72E, which is going to be a new fee and a daily permit rate for filming and filming crews and commercials. And this area is used quite extensively for commercials. It kind of goes against what a lot of other areas are doing. And of the fees, I think this is a new fee and is one that should be considered either being reduced or maybe continued to be at the rate it is now in order to help promote filming and especially the filming of commercials in Lancaster in light of the runaway production that is being addressed throughout the state. Thank you.
Barbara, where are we in regards to comparable fees?
I don't know if I've ever used this. When we recommend a fee, and it's a new fee, we go through a process of reviewing what is the work effort involved in providing that service, and then what is the cost in relation to that work effort. We don't necessarily compare it to other areas because they may have a different process, they may have different salary schedules. It's not always easy to compare. It's not a good way to do it. The fee that's being proposed, which he's referring to our filming and special event encroachment permit, is based on the cost of staff, that's time involved in allowing that encroachment to take place and then recovering those fees, and it's proposed at $325 for the daily permit. It is, always council's discretion to adjust that fee based on other priorities. What happens then is that service is being subsidized from general taxes that are paying for those
Have we
salaries.
met with any resistance?
I haven't heard from anybody else.
Mayor Paris, I can answer that if you'd like. We have not met with any resistance. In fact, we are one of the few areas where filming is increasing because we have our own film office. We streamline everything for the film crews, and they're very happy with us. We have our own film office, as I said, and we're actually increasing filming in this area.
Any indication whatsoever we would increase the number of film crews up here if we reduced this or got rid of it?
It's actually a pretty minimal fee for what they do, and keep in mind that our film office is tied in with LA County and LA City and the state film office, so we really kind of take a look at all those different jurisdictions and how they do things. We have not had any pushback. It's pretty inexpensive compared to what they spend on other areas.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Mr. Bozigian, or maybe it's from Mr. Lawson or from Mr. Green. We have the economic stimulus package. Is any of that money or restricted funds can be used if there's some kind of special project or special filming that we can use money towards helping out that industry, just like we do other industries that we might work with? Maybe that's that isn't part of the stimulus package directly. I mean, but if we had something come up, we would certainly come and
accommodated with money from there or elsewhere. Vern, I don't know if you want to add.
Yeah, I think as Barbara described it, the fee that is now existing really covers the cost to provide the service and isn't envisioned as an incentive. But an incentive is certainly something that could be considered, at a future time. If that's something you want to do.
So my viewpoint is that if we, just so that people understand, there's so many different pots of money, if this fee money comes out of, if we don't get this fee for a service that we have to pay for as a city, well, not us, but all of you out there have to pay for this fee. It comes out of your tax dollars. If we don't get it from the movie company, that's general fund money. That's money that goes to public safety, to cops and everything. If we want to help out and get those businesses up here, it's better to use redevelopment money, which is restricted funds that can't be used for cops. So I think I think that fee structure is good. And I know Barbara does a great cost allocation analysis. And I don't think, Barbara, do we recoup 100% of our money on the fees, even with this increase?
No, we do not.
Yeah, so we're still even short of recouping the money of money that has to come from general fund.
Yeah, my understanding too, historically, that are we not still behind in relationship to our fee structures when we did our last analysis?
We are. We recently completed a study, although we're not proposing on it to implement it this time, but right now the cost of providing most services exceeds the fee that's being charged. And what's being recommended is the CPI index, which is, a minor adjustment that helps bring it closer, but certainly doesn't close that gap.
Right. I just wanted to make sure the public was aware that historically we had not moved as quick as maybe we should have, and we're still paying the price for that, and the fee structure does not match the actual cost the city incurs. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion? Is there a motion?
I'll move that we adopt the annual CIP adjustment per the schedule.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I apologize. Adopt resolution number 09-91 and adopt resolution 09-92.
And that's a second.
Thank you. Let's vote. It's unanimous. Moving on to public hearing item number 2. We'll hear a staff report from Robert Neal, our Public Works Director.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, I know that you have a full agenda tonight, so I will make this brief. Staff is requesting the City Council receive public input to determine if there are objections to the vacation of 153 feet of alley associated with a restaurant and retail shell development at the southeast corner of Avenue J and Fig Avenue, and if appropriate, order the vacation of the alley. The alley, I need to note, is one leg of a T intersection. Its removal will not cut alley access to nearby residential properties. In the current state, the alley isolates one of 4 parcels that constitute the project, separating the buildings from their parking areas. Given the development configuration and that utility easements will be retained, staff recommends that the portion of the alley shown within the staff report be vacated. I'm available for questions.
Any questions?
There's no speaker's cards.
No speaker cards? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Oh, close the public hearing. Any discussion?
If there's no discussion, I'll move that we adopt resolution number 09-93.
I'll second that.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. Moving on to new business, item number 1, we'll hear from Economic Development Director Vern Lawson.
I, too, will be brief due to the length of your agenda tonight. This is an item that conceptually you approved back last February when you approved the economic stimulus package. But what we have before you tonight is an agreement between the city and the Antelope Valley Fair to really kick off Destination Lancaster. We put together a couple of slides to show you. We had a press event a couple weeks ago back at the fair. We had a terrific participation from the public. But I was particularly pleased. We had almost, I think, 12 different vendors that came out, kind of indicating the sorts of businesses that would be willing to participate if we got this up and running. Obviously, groups like Jethawks, and we had a number of restaurants there. We had a lot of representation from groups that are involved in outdoor activities. One of the core concepts of Destination Lancaster is that we will pursue adventure tourism, which is no more sophisticated than combining an overnight stay in the city of Lancaster with an outdoor activity. And so what we tried to do is show some of the things that could be done in conjunction with the outdoors. On the left up there is a gentleman representing Devil's Punch Bowl, obviously outdoor mountain biking, hiking, those kinds of things. Clearly hot air ballooning is something that could be packaged with an overnight room stay. And then finally, what we've done, recognizing that there really has been an awful lot of activity in this area in the past, primarily by these people right here. Lancaster for a long time has pursued sports tourism through the Parks and Recreation Department. Obviously the fair, who we're partnering with, nobody knows more about attracting visitors into the city of Lancaster than the Antelope Valley Fair. I think the event we had last weekend is indicative of the kind of thing that we're talking about. We really see the Tourism Bureau as an opportunity to kind of coordinate those programs. I think remember we've said in the past that our hotel rooms tend to be full during the week because of the business overnight stays, but on the weekends the rooms have some occupancy issues. So we think events like we had this last weekend are perfect to fill those up. The soccer and softball that will continue. I think next weekend we've got another soccer program coming in town. Was it softball? Both. Okay. Yeah, but to coordinate all that and really the purpose of economic development is to create wealth in a town, and we know that, we pick up the paper and read that a merchant in downtown Lancaster ran out of food on a weekend because of an event that we had. That's the kind of things that we want to hear. We have representatives of the fair here. The general manager, Dan Jacobs, he brought a couple of board members. I think Deanna Ward is there, as is Cecil Swetland, and we'd all be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any speaker cards?
No speakers cards. Mr. Mayor?
We'll close the public hearing. And any discussion?
I got a note to pull that one. That was from Mr. Swetland? Yeah, he put in a card, but then I got sent a note saying that he pulled it.
Any discussion?
Well, I'd like to say if this weekend's show was indicative of what Destination Lancaster's going to be, then staff is on the right track, that's for sure. Get that right track.
Well, that's more than a lot of us could say.
I think he was talking about you, Ron. Driving.
No, I was talking about all of us.
It was great. It was great. It was fantastic. So.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve the letter of the MOU with the fairgrounds.
I'll second that.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. Okay, now we'll do business item number 2. We'll hear from the City Attorney, Dave McEwen.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you have before you tonight an ordinance which amends our business license provisions in the municipal code. They currently provide that the city manager has the authority to revoke a business license for anybody who violates state, local, or federal law. The federal law regulates the hiring of and prohibits the hiring of undocumented workers. What we're doing with this proposed ordinance is clarifying our statute along the lines that the state of Arizona followed, and their effort was upheld by a Ninth Circuit Court case earlier this year, in which they specifically provide that a failure to comply with federal law as it relates to the hiring of undocumented workers will result in the revocation of the business license of the entity hiring those. The ordinance also requires the use of E-Verify. And I think, at the direction of the mayor, we've put together a fairly concise ordinance that accomplishes this. It goes into effect as of any time it applies to any employees hired after December 31st of this year. So commencing January 1 of 2010, every employer will have to use E-Verify and for any new hires and produce the records for us to examine if we have a reason to do so. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. McEwen. Okay, let's open the public hearing. First speaker is Stephen Gornick.
Hi, my name is Steve Gornick.
Good evening.
I was reading the attachment with the ordinance and found one part of it to be unclear to me, specifically 5.50.040 regarding the penalty for violation, which says that the employer must, after a violation, terminate the employment of all their undocumented workers in the city. In the definitions section, employee means hiring an employee after December 31st, 2009. So what I'm wondering is, does the penalty for a violation mean terminate the employment of all of their undocumented workers, regardless of when the worker was hired, or only those workers hired after December 31st, 2009?
It would apply prospectively to employees hired after December 31st.
Well, is there some ambiguity in the way it's written?
Yeah, perhaps. We could add in violation of this ordinance, hired in violation of this ordinance.
Okay, that's a good catch. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good clarification.
Let's see if we can fix that now. Is there anything else?
And another clarification. So with a lot of employees currently laid off, if they are brought back after December 31st, 2009, does that employee need to be run through E-Verify in that situation?
I'm unclear with what you're asking.
Right now, if somebody's laid off and they're brought back after December 31st, does the employer can they just bring them back, or do they need to run E-Verify for the employee that's been was employed and now they're bringing them back?
I think they have to run E-Verify for that. That's a new hire.
It's pretty much going to be a strict liability statute if they didn't run E-Verify. The employers in Lancaster need to really understand this, that if they have not run E-Verify and they have undocumented workers, the consequences could be severe. But thank you. It was a good catch.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Arnold Rodeo.
I have probably a few more catches for you. One of the things on the letter, E-Verify actually is, there's a statement that's currently not required by any federal, state, or law. Currently, federal contractors, anybody with a federal contract has to use the E-Verify. So the system is up and running. My question is, there's provisions within this that I have some questions on. I do think that if you dry up the jobs, you're going to dry up the problem. And so I'm in favor of it from that aspect, but I do have some concerns. One of them is the bit that it says that you have to maintain your records and it will be made immediately available to the city for inspection and audit upon written notice. There's no definition of what that's going to entail. The notice is from the city manager, who's defined as basically anybody that works with the city. So what I can envision is you have a code enforcement person come, knock on the door, hand you a notice, and has access to all your personnel records. My personnel records contain Social Security numbers, copies of driver's licenses, and the bank account numbers for direct deposit. There's nothing in here that prohibits the person that's doing the audit, who can be anybody, from copying those records, and then I assume the liability if there's an identity theft or another issue that way. I don't have a problem with, hiring legal people or producing records to prove it, but there's no type of a control that takes care of any of my problems as an employer of exposing all of their personal, financial, and identity information to just anybody that shows up with a piece of paper from the city. And I think there should be limits that they cannot copy records, that they can do the audit under some sort of supervision. And I also think there should be some sort of a notice period where if you showed up tomorrow, my bookkeeper may not be in, and it may not be easy to produce the records. So there should be something like a 72-hour written notice to the employer so they can prepare the records, have them ready, then the city can come in, do their thing, and the problem can be taken care of. But the E-Verify, way to go. It's a very simple system to use. Thank you.
Mr. Rodeo, I'm curious, how could they possibly give 72 hours notice and be effective in actually auditing the employers? That's sort of like, 72-hour notices on a search warrant. Usually the stuff is gone.
No, because I have my employment records, and you're not going to be auditing my people. You're going to go and say, where's your employee files, which we have on every employee. They'll go through them, and they'll pull the I-9 with the E-Verify record to show that I did E-Verify them. Now, if they do have names on a job site that they've gotten, and, so-and-so, and they can't find a record for them, then I got a problem. But all of my employees, I have complete files, their vacation times, when they take off, 6 days, everything in their file. So, but I would need to make sure that the people that handle that aspect of the business are there for the city person, because some of that records I couldn't show you where they're at if you just asked me. I'd have to ask my bookkeeper.
Thank you. Mr. Bozigi?
Yes, as with any ordinance, if the council adopts this ordinance, we would then come up with protocols and procedures on how we do that, including education for the employers of what they can expect. We also hire reputable audit firms that would only look for what they're auditing. One of the reasons this goes into effect January 1st or December 31st, I think it is so that we can get up to speed on those kind of regulation or those kind of requirements.
Thank you.
And let me add to the thing.
Let me close the public hearing. There's no other speaker cards.
The requirement for maintaining records and the records that are subject to audit and review are only those to demonstrate that they've complied with the E-Verify requirement. So they don't have to produce the complete employment record of that person.
Okay. So whatever printout you get from E-Verify would satisfy that requirement?
Correct.
Mayor Parris, I was going to add, currently and I don't know if it's definitely not bragging rights, but my 40 years of being in the restaurant experience had me entertain both a federal inspector and a state inspector, and typically in the most recent years the state has been very generous, and they usually give you written notification in advance. Historically, they would typically give you 24 hours notice, and the federal government was usually typically the same, usually 24 hours. And records involving E-Verify, everybody really needs to understand that I believe, and I shared this with the city manager, we're actually doing employers a favor. I don't know if we would have a change in leadership in the federal government, but historically I had the experience of helping out with INS inspections, and by using E-Verify, we're really saving you a lot of headaches and severe fines if they would take the same position they did historically, because I watched businesses be fined in the thousands of dollars per employee when they were illegal. So I know that sometimes people might feel repulsed, like, well, here's another additional restraint that the city of Lancaster is putting on an employer, and I really see it's a generosity by us having this ordinance, because there could be some employers that typically run small businesses that are totally unaware of that, and God forbid that they would have somebody unknowingly employed and not be a legal, either someone that would not have papers to be legally employed or have the right to work in the United States. So I just look at it from a different point of view based on my 40 years of experience. And again, typically we just keep the I-9 record separate from the rest of the employment. And that's And that also meets the federal requirement as well.
Well, I want to be absolutely clear. If an employer is hiring undocumented workers in Lancaster, I'm not going to do them any favors. You know, the fact is we have this undocumented worker problem, which is causing unbelievable problems both for the undocumented workers and for the rest of society, and it's because local agencies have not been enforcing it. And I don't want to give employers notice. What I want is a city where undocumented workers do not have jobs attracting them across the border. It seems pretty simple to me that this is an easily solved problem if we just solve it. And I think that this goes a long ways to doing it. But I do want to, you know, if there's any issue as to notice, I mean, notice just isn't going to work. I've been on a lot of construction sites in this city where English is not spoken. So, you know, let's be clear with what we're doing. Anyone else?
Yes. You know, we've been working on this, or in the previous council, for about 2.5 years now and getting to this point. So we haven't just jumped into this and said, hey, we're just got to do this. I mean, we've had, a 1.5-year audit also. We started on our business license about 2.5, almost 3 years ago, and then we did an audit, started an audit with this council. So we've gotten to this point. And with all due respect to Councilman Mann, who's worked with the state and the federal government, I think if the state and the federal government, California, does it a certain way, that tells me we should do it the opposite, because they haven't made effect. And I like the idea of you know, going in there and those kind of records, photocopy them, keep those records. You know, that's easy to do. We make them keep their business license. Do we walk in there and say, you get 72-hour notice so you can get your business license? No, we don't do that either. So I think I agree with the mayor on that.
What I like about it is to make sure that our American citizens get the jobs first, and that means our teenagers too. I know sometimes I hear a lot of people tell me that it's very hard for their teenagers to get a job just flipping burgers, so I think that's going to be a big plus with this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Guess there's not much left to do but move introduction of ordinance number 934.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
We need to interlineate the change in section 5.50.040A. And the language would be added in the beginning, after the word city, at the beginning of the third line of subparagraph A, and it would read, hired in violation of this ordinance. So if we insert that phrase. And then I would also like to thank Barbara Boswell and Beverly Glode and their staffs for all of the assistance they provided in researching some of the background on E-Verify and the other issues related to this.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll amend that motion to match Mr. McEwen's proposed changes.
Second stands.
Okay. Let's vote. And it's unanimous. Thank you. Walmart back? What? No. Yeah. Let's take a break before we do the next item. Okay, we're back on.
Send it up to staff.
Now, before we go to the item that everyone is here for, well, a lot of you are here for, on behalf of the council, we have another presentation. Where's the city manager? He abandoned this post when I needed him?
There he is.
There he is.
Determination.
He hasn't decided to step all the way forward yet.
Bigger than Bob's.
Oh, he's looking for Homer.
I didn't say it was 4 more.
Congratulations on your retirement.
We're giving this to you, but it's really to the entire city staff. We thought this weekend was truly magnificent, and it was right on the heels of Metamorphoses, which had already blown our socks off. And so from the council to the city staff, we got you a card. Good. Now, shows the event. We left out the one of you crying. And I'd like the press to know that we signed it individually away from each other, so there was no Brown Act violation. Thank you.
We'd like to spend a moment and thank the council and say that, I was going to say this under the city manager's announcement, but we had several events this month. Metamorphosis, Celebrate Downtown, Park at the Park.
Oh, that's right. That's
Classic
right.
Car Show, big recruiting tournament. It's been a heck of a month and a great month for Lancaster. We appreciate the council so much for allowing us to go out and try things for the first time. Also, what we're going to do is help a lot of the staff that's involved in this event. I don't usually surprise the council, but I will this time. So we're going to try to do some kind of a barbecue with the council and the staff involved in this event. What we're going to try to do is, if we can work it, have some of those cars there so some of the staff can race against the council and no repercussions if they beat you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to new business item number 3. And if Mr. McEwen would be so kind as to fill us in.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there's been a lot said and a lot written about this topic for the last several months. The Criminal Justice Commission held 2 public meetings at which this was discussed at length. And as a result of those meetings, the Criminal Justice Commission has recommended 2 things. One, that medical marijuana dispensaries be prohibited within the city of Lancaster, and 2, that if the city council so chose, that an ordinance be drafted to regulate medical marijuana collectives. Just by way of very brief background, I think you're all aware that Proposition 215, the Compassionate Use Act, was approved by the voters in 1996. Subsequent to that, the state legislature added some provisions to it under SB 420, under the what they call it, the Medical Marijuana Program Act, which provided some additional details with respect to that program and required counties to provide a voluntary, it was mandatory on the counties, but it was voluntary on any qualified patient or primary caregiver to sign up for identification cards. Interestingly, the counties of San Bernardino and San Diego both challenged that statute, the mandatory nature of that, on the grounds that it was preempted by federal Controlled Substance Act. And the court in that case concluded that there was no preemption by federal law with respect to that act. Now, they were focused primarily on the registration part of it. In any rate, the Proposition 215 allows medical marijuana by qualified patients who have a doctor's order and their primary caregivers, and it allows them to possess, transport, and cultivate medical marijuana or marijuana for medical purposes. What I think there's been a lot said in the last several weeks particularly in the LA Times, about what's going on in the LA Basin, primarily in the city of LA, and the district attorney's viewpoint on this, that the medical dispensaries, or medical marijuana dispensaries, are not authorized by Prop 215 and are illegal. He has not said necessarily that collectives are, and I think it's very clear under the law that collectives are still permitted under the state law. And there's a question about the sale of medical marijuana as well, because that's not mentioned anywhere in in Proposition 215. It is subsequently mentioned in the Medical Marijuana Program Act. They specify several other sections not mentioned in Prop 215. I should mention also that there were some limitations placed in the Medical Marijuana Program Act on the amount of marijuana that may be possessed by a qualified patient. Those provisions have been declared unconstitutional by at least two courts, two Court of Appeals, and review has been granted by the state Supreme Court. So we'll await the outcome of that. But the theory being that the Medical Marijuana Program Act, to the extent it placed limitations not contained in 215, it was an amendment of 215 by the legislature and not by the voters, and the act specifically required it to be amended by the voters. So we'll await the outcome of that. There are a lot of details of the act, and I could go into those if you would like me to. However, I think I would conclude my report with simply a recommendation that the council consider the appointment of a committee consisting of your choice, but I would recommend two council members, two members of the Criminal Justice Commission and myself, to work on an ordinance that meets all of the requirements of what we have just described, and to bring that back to you at a future date.
Thank you. Discussion before I open the public hearing? Can I get some, Dave, can I get some clarification on two items? One is the issue of identification cards. Those are currently issued by who now?
County Department of Public Health. Mandated by the State Department of Public Health.
Okay, and the County of Los Angeles is issuing those?
That's my understanding, yes.
And the state initiative and the subsequent law, does it discuss, for a doctor's order, is there any requirement, as there is with any other medication I'm aware of, the doctor to specify the amount, the frequency, or the maximum dosage per day?
Not in the statutes, and they're very, very careful to distinguish between a prescription, which is not required, and just a doctor's recommendation, and that's all that is required under the Act, and that's what their doctors are exempt from the Controlled Substance Act for providing that recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
A couple questions, just real quick before we get started. You know, I looked over the case law on the the two counties that sued, and very specifically, the constitutional issue was that it wasn't a preemption because this is just a registration card. It wasn't saying that it's unconstitutional because you can't tell California that you can't make marijuana legal. It was the act of just saying we want registration cards. Is that correct?
That's my read of the case, is that it did not go to the fundamental question of the use of marijuana.
Because I know we get a lot of cards. We've had a number of emails and a number of speakers that say cite those two cases to say that marijuana is legal this way, when it was really specifically talking about the registration process.
The case, it's I think County of San Diego something versus normal. For the national organization, something for medical marijuana or marijuana legalization. The case goes into great depth in its analysis of the preemption issue of the Federal Controlled Substance Act versus what states can do. And there's, as I read it, and it's been a few days since I've read it, but there's a fair amount of leeway left for states to operate in the area of controlled substances.
Just one more quick question. When you talk about sales, there's no sales under the proposition, but under the Marijuana Act. That precludes any sales of purchasing from people who are not part of a cooperative, that do not have I mean, like, you can't go to your local drug dealer and say, hey, I need, 10 keys for my cooperative. That's a realistic question.
That is a very good question.
I'm just shocked that you know the language.
I'm a retired deputy sheriff. I know a little bit of that language. So that is correct. In other words, there's no third party sales, no third party growing, no
Correct.
third party
There's no exemption for that third party to grow or sell
That was my understanding also.
the marijuana. Period. It only exempts the qualified patient or their primary caregiver. And what the Medical Marijuana Program Act did was specifically provide for collectives it uses the language collectives and cooperatives for a group of qualified patients and primary caregivers to get together and to produce, transport, and cultivate marijuana for their own use. It doesn't necessarily provide for the sale of that to somebody who may be a remote member of this cooperative or collective, but it talks about the collective cultivation and use of medical marijuana. The one thing to point out, too, is that under state law, there is provision for the formation of a collective, what I would call a statutory collective. There is no provision in state law for forming a co-op. There's no formal business entity of a co-op. Now, people have used those terms interminglingly, and so, I think they get mixed up, but it really would be a collective, a statutory collective.
Can you define those terms a little bit? I've been using the collective and co-op interchangeably.
Well, I think most people do. All I'm saying is that there is a specific legal form for collective, and there is no specific legal form of a business organization for a cooperative.
Is there a legal, in the medical world, and maybe Councilman Celio can, maybe he knows better than all of us on this, but there's usually a very specific definition of what a primary caregiver is, because in the medical field, when you have there's some responsibility, some legal. Is there anything in here, or can you just get any Joe Blow on the street and say, you're my primary caregiver now?
No, there have been a number of cases that have said specifically that. You can't just designate somebody as your primary caregiver if they're not involved in making day-to-day decisions on your medical treatment. And there's a definition, if you bear with me just a second. But it requires, I think, for them to be with you and to designate at least maybe 50% of their time. But the other thing is you can designate, one person can be designated as the primary caregiver for more than one person as long as they reside within the same city or county.
But they would have to meet the requirement of being a primary caregiver for each patient.
Is it California Health and Safety Code 11362.7?
It's somewhere there. I had it marked.
That's what your reference is.
I'm sorry, Sherry, I was listening to the phone ring. What was the question?
I was just giving him the reference if that would help, because in your information to us, the California Health and Safety Code, talking about primary caregiver.
You're right. Subsection D of that means an individual designated by a qualified patient or by a person with an identification card who has consistently assumed responsibility for the housing, health, or safety of that patient or person. And then it goes on to describe a number of different ways that a person could do that. But what the courts have made clear is that designating somebody as your primary caregiver for the sole purpose of providing you with medical marijuana does not qualify as a primary caregiver. And that, from my limited research into the operations of various entities, that is really what is happening in a lot of the dispensaries, is that they're designating that person who operates the dispensary as their primary caregiver, and the only contact they have is in the provision of marijuana.
So there's the
that just isn't going to work.
There's the third one that we've heard, it's dispensary, a co-op, and a collective. And the only one that's in the state law is collective.
That's,
and they're
yes.
very specific on the definition of it. Thanks. That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, well done. Let's open the public hearing. The public hearing is going to be limited to 1 hour, so speak quickly. I would like the 3 chairs there on the end. Sir, if I could have you move back so I could use those chairs. I will call 3 names. I want the chairs filled, and then I can call you up from the chairs. It'll be faster. Keep in mind that we have had 2 days of hearings on this. All of the council, my understanding, has been informed or either watched those hearings or been informed as to the results of them. Before we begin, I want to caution everyone. I was more than upset about how some of the people who were against the marijuana collectives were treated when they spoke against it. That will not happen tonight. If it does, the people who engage in that kind of behavior will be asked to leave. If they don't leave, they will be arrested. We are going to treat each other with a tremendous amount of respect this evening. This place has got to be a place where everyone gets to share their views, whether you agree with them or don't agree with them. In addition, if there's any public outburst of any kind, I will immediately recess, and we could be here all night because that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to recess the meeting. I don't expect there to be any problems. I just don't want a repeat of what I saw at the Criminal Justice Commission. I did not like the way some, especially the elderly people who were against it, were received. Thank you. The first speaker will be David Paul. Oh, wait a minute, let me give you the 3 names. David Paul, Clifford Schaefer, and Melanie Coker. If you could all come up.
David had to leave.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
David had to leave.
David had to leave? Okay. So it'd be Clifford Schaefer, Melanie Coker, and Brian, is it Nam? If you could all come up and take a seat.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before we start, let me correct something I said. I said there was no such thing as a collective in the statutes. There is no such thing as a collective. It's a statutory cooperative. So I got it just 180. So I apologize for that confusion, but got it right this time.
I sometimes read that statute and think the person who wrote it was high when he wrote it.
I've had that thought.
But to their credit, I understand there's going to be some initiatives that will clear it up. Clifford Schaefer.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I just want to cover briefly why we're here. We're here because there's a legal question about what to do about marijuana, and that arises primarily from the fact that it's illegal at the federal level. And you ought to know why it's illegal at the federal level. There were 2 major reasons for it. One was because all Mexicans are crazy and marijuana is what makes them crazy. And the second reason was the fear that heroin addiction would lead to the use of marijuana, exactly the opposite of what they tell you now. At the hearings, only 2 doctors testified. The representative of the American Medical Association said there was no reason for marijuana to be illegal because it wasn't a dangerous drug. It was used in 250 medicines at the time. The only other doctor to testify was Dr. James C. Munch, and his sole claim to fame was that he had injected some extract of cannabis directly into the brains of 300 dogs, and 2 of them died. And when they asked him what he concluded from this, he said he didn't know. Dr. Munch later went on to testify in court under oath that marijuana would make your fangs grow 6 inches long and drip with blood. And he also said that when he tried it, it turned him into a bat. Dr. Munch was the only doctor in the U.S. who thought that marijuana should be illegal, so he was appointed U.S. official expert on marijuana, where he served for 25 years. That's basically why we're here tonight. Currently, the marijuana market is estimated to be about $100 billion a year, about the same size as the market for beer. So as you drive around Lancaster, every time you see a place where beer is on sale, that same amount of marijuana is also on sale in your city. The only difference is that you know who the beer sellers are. They have a license, they follow rules, they pay taxes. The problem with marijuana is that nobody follows the rules. That same amount of money is flowing through your community, and it is completely unregulated by anyone but organized crime. It is time to get a handle on it. It is time to bring this under control. Thank you.
Thank you. If we do this, we're going to exceed the hour, and then some people won't be able to speak. So let's just have everybody speak, and then let's deal with the issue. Melanie Coker.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I've been waiting a long time for this meeting. I'm even getting the AARP cards in the mail and the burial insurance invitations.
There's nothing wrong with an AARP
I've only got
card.
3 minutes, so as all of you know, I'm the director of Holistically Yours, and have had a collective here for almost 3 years. We have been very discreet and want to keep it that way. We want a location that is safe access, members only, no public business, no signs, no advertisement. We must take all necessary steps to ensure that we are not sending the wrong message to the children in our community by being flagrant. There is a methadone clinic in Lancaster and one in Palmdale, and they have storefront locations. You wouldn't know it was there. You wouldn't even know it existed because out of sight, out of mind. We don't want, and we know Lancaster does not want, any duplication of what's going on in the city of Los Angeles. There are small cities and counties that allow collectives to operate, and we don't hear any negative news from them because they keep it at a very small scale and have regulated them very correctly. Los Angeles has set a bad example on this issue. I'm so nervous. I feel like I'm in the White House. In God we trust. Okay. Okay, where was I? Jesus. Where is it? Okay. Los Angeles has set a very bad example on this issue, so bad that it's creating a marijuana virus that maybe we don't want to catch. But it is also making it very difficult for us who are sincere in what we are trying to do within our collective. We need to adopt regulations that work successfully for the city and the collectives, that are reasonable and acceptable. And at the end of the day, what matters is the quality of life we have created together for many men and women who are suffering, in pain, or dying. It's compassion, listening, understanding, sharing, and caring.
Thank you. Brian Nam.
Hi, my name's Brian Nam. I was going to come tonight and maybe offer some debate on the validity of medical marijuana, but I really think that that debate's over. I think everybody realizes the medical issue and the medical properties behind cannabis, and really I just wanted to take the opportunity to let the council know and the citizens of Lancaster that I am one of 4 founding members of a co-op that exists already in the Antelope Valley. It's called New Leaf Family Incorporated. We are a nonprofit statutory cooperative, and I just want to let the council members and the community know that we will continue to go forward and provide medication to our patients regardless of what you guys decide tonight. But we will do it with the utmost integrity and respect to the community. That is the only thing I can promise. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, I vote, You might want to just, good. Zach Hummel, Stacy Hummel, and Eric Moravez. I'm sorry, Moravez? Moravez. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Zach Hummel, part of New Leaf Family Co-op. It's odd to me that we're here today to give a yes or no vote on cooperatives, since they're already here, and due to state law, it supersedes city law. And not to mention the fact that Attorney General Eric Holder, with the authority of the President, said that it was up to the states to govern themselves when it comes to marijuana laws. According to those laws and those statements, we could open right now, but why? Why not right now we all get together and regulate this before it becomes a situation like Los Angeles or Orange County? We have an opportunity here to deal with this and deal with it properly. So I please urge you, yes vote, and throw some regulations on this, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy Hummel.
Hello, my name is Stacy Hummel, and I am also a founding member of New Leaf Family Cooperative. We are a nonprofit, mutual benefit, statutory cooperative. Our medicine is grown by our members and for our members only. I will make this very succinct. A yes vote today will give Lancaster the ability to regulate and watch over properly run, legal, nonprofit cooperatives such as ours. We've been on this path for quite a while, and while we have been twice illegally denied a business license, we still held out hope that during this meeting today, you, the City Council, would vote yes to regulations, keeping the medical marijuana community safe. But according to California state laws, it is well within our legal rights to open up a storefront cooperative right now, and should we exhaust all resources and still end up with a no vote, we will be forced to open and operate with no regulations other than those that we self-impose. With a yes vote, without a yes vote, without a regulation, we could very well end up with neon green pot leaves on every corner. This is not a question of whether or not medical marijuana is here in Lancaster. We know it is. People are just getting it from Los Angeles and bringing it back. We all need to recognize also that the reason why Los Angeles is in the predicament it is in now is because the City Council and the Planning and Land Use Committee did not regulate. We can prevent that with a yes vote and subsequent regulations. I want to be really clear about something that Mr. McEwen said. There's a big difference between dispensaries and storefront cooperatives. Dispensaries are for-profit entities. Storefront cooperatives are non-profit entities that provide medicine, grow medicine by their members, for their members only. Again, I implore you to give us the proper channels. I am a law-abiding citizen who does not want trouble. Please give us a chance to do things right here in Lancaster. Frankly, we're tired of fighting for something that is actually already legal in California simply because we're trying to do it legally, we're trying to do it transparently, and we're trying to do it ethically. We at New Leaf would also like to invite any verifiable patient tonight, not currently a co-op member, to see us after this meeting to join New Leaf Family, because together we are strong. And our co-op also, we want everybody to know here on the City Council that we don't just ask for financial assistance when it comes to trading that for the marijuana itself. We also ask for goods or services, because a lot of our members are either disabled or short on funds. So thank you very much, and we ask your yes vote this evening.
Thank you. Eric Moravez? Moravez, okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Paris.
Good evening. How are you?
I have a lot of compassion for all of those who are suffering from different diseases and ailments that may afflict them. I'm here tonight in opposition of opening any form of collectives, cooperatives, dispensaries, and such. And I'm not here for me. I'm not here because my brother started out using marijuana, got into hard drugs, and spent most of his adult life incarcerated. I'm actually here because of my youngest sister, who from birth has been severely disabled. And I spoke to her on this subject. I'd love to give anything to get rid of her pain. She's been on a pain pump for many, many years, and I watch her suffer. But when I brought this topic up to her, she basically had a couple of points and says, this is why I oppose this. Number one, how can we regulate this? There's no way to regulate this unless you violate patients' rights, because there is no consistent way and universal way of identifying fraud and abuse that, unfortunately, is within the system. The other thing that she said is what's a correct dose? What's the potency? I need to know all these things before I take a drug. So using as another example, Mayor Paris, with all respect, because I believe in what you do, as a good example, the advertisements that you have on your television talking about prescription drugs and the incorrect dosages. There are legal remedies to deal with those errors. How are errors and remedies going to take place with these cooperatives when something goes awry? How is potency and dosage amounts? There's no set guidelines. So who's held accountable when something goes awry with the usage of medical marijuana? Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Villalobos, Lenny Fisher, and Lindy Williams.
Hello. I'm here to speak in behalf of all the collectives in the Antelope Valley. I'm a patient of many of them, require my medication, and I feel that they need some type of regulation. It is the Wild West out here. Everybody's doing whatever they want and freely. So I urge you to vote on a good regulation to control this, because they're already here. They're not going anywhere. You could vote what you like, but they're not going anywhere. They're here, and they're here to stay. So I urge you to please help regulate and help some of the patients and the compassion of the people out here to be able to live a comfortable life in Lancaster and any city up in the Antelope Valley. So I urge you to make that step and help these poor people out. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Fisher.
Hi, my name's Lenny Fisher. I'm a cancer patient, diagnosed 7 years ago. Medical marijuana made a difference in my life. Along with having cancer issues, I also suffered from chronic back and leg pain. You notice I use a cane. 6-7 years ago, they told me I wouldn't walk again. I'm standing here before you. I'm one of the co-founders of the Greater Los Angeles Collectives Alliance that tried to work with the city of Los Angeles and get regulation going. Unfortunately, the city dragged their feet, and now they're in a quagmire, which we all know about. I'm here to ask you today to take the time to get solid regulation. Your city attorney recommended a commission with several members of your board and what have you. I recommend that you do that, and you also ask people like myself and several others here that are advocates to sit on that panel. I worked in collectives for 5 years. I know how a nonprofit collectivist should be ran, and I'd be glad to help you understand how that should be done. It is important that you understand that this is a health issue. Sure, there's going to be lots of people come before you that still buy into the old propaganda, the reefer madness, which was exactly that, madness. It was nonsense, found on no fact. I ask you to take the time to do your homework. One of the things your city attorney did was he brought to you some of the issues legally. What he forgot to add in there is the state of California Attorney General Jerry Brown has issued guidelines regarding our types of facilities. I ask you to take the time to find it and read it and understand it. It says clearly in there that well-run non-profit collectives may be legal in the state of California. Thank you very much for your time. Do the right thing.
Thank you. Lindy Williams.
Thank you, council members, Mayor. He pretty much said it. I am injured, and I'm recovering, and I'm grateful that I can walk. At one point, I could not. But to cut to the chase, I do believe in regulation, absolutely. I live in this town. I'm a homeowner. I don't want anything that you see on TV happening in my neighborhood. I want people to have safe access, myself included, so we can do the right thing. And in my opinion, the right thing would be to pay attention, because like everybody's saying, it's already here. Don't miss the boat. I remember at one point Lancaster was the leader. Not to try to kick our neighbor Palmdale, but at one point Lancaster was the lead. Please, do the research, do the information. To reiterate, take the time, get the people who are using, who are legal, who have their license, to find out how it works, because until I did, I didn't believe it either. I thought it was high school and maybe possibly a joke, and it's not. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we have Anthony Gordon, Richard Perella. Is it Peralta? I'm sorry. Oh, and
January cello?
Okay, great. Anthony Gordon?
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to thank the council for giving me this opportunity to speak. I understand that this is an emerging area of the law. As the laws change, we must adapt. Under Section 11362.775 of the Health and Safety Code, qualified patients, persons with valid identification cards, who associate within the state of California in order to collectively or cooperatively cultivate marijuana for medical purposes shall not solely on the basis of that fact be subject to state criminal sanctions under Section 11357, 58, 59, 60, 66, 66.5, or 11570. We will be trying to open true community collectives or cooperatives. Our cooperatives will be a joint identity working with the members of the community as per the definition of cooperative. It is the patient's obligation and responsibility to provide the members of the cooperative with the medicine they need. Furthermore, as a cooperative, our patients will be cultivating our medicine. This will truly embody the principles of the members working collectively to help the members of their cooperative. We would like to help the City of Lancaster to avoid the mistakes of Los Angeles. We will do this by working with the City Council to make proper rules and regulations to provide the thousands of people in the Antelope Valley the medicine they need and deserve. Additionally, marijuana is effective in relieving the discomfort and symptoms of cancer patients and many other patients with a variety of illnesses. Our cooperative will help members of the Lancaster area that are in need of such medicine. I have run my city-approved pre-moratorium cooperative in Los Angeles since 2006. In that time, I have regularly met with my attorney to make sure that I am currently complying with all new state and zoning laws. In fact, I have brought copies for all current state legislation for the council, and I can leave it for you guys, the same Attorney General, the city attorney. Our facility is secured properly, and there is no threat to the patients or the surrounding members of the community. This is a movement I strongly believe in, and I am well educated in the laws and experienced in running a successful community endeavor. Unlike many of the so-called dispensaries in Los Angeles, who advertise their product to recreational users, our mission is to help legitimate patients. Our mission is to help legitimate patients. We are a place of medicine, and it is not our main incentive to make a profit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask him one question?
Yes. Sir. Sir.
Sir. You read off a particular site you cited. Could you give me that citation again at the beginning of your speech?
Section 11362-775.
Of what code?
Of the Health and Safety Code.
Health and Safety Code. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Peralta?
My name is Richard Peralta. I haven't had the honor of working with you guys yet, but I worked with Henry Hearns for several years out here. Was involved in High Desert Storm, cleaning up the city, getting the buildings torn down, getting the drugs out. I put no guns, no gangs, no drunk sites all over the city. I was injured. I became I've been sober livings here for years. Me and a guy named Kenny Washington, who you put a sign up for over on Beach Street. And, you know, I've seen a lot of things come and go here, and I got injured very badly. I have bad arthritis. I can hardly walk, and I was on Vicodin, and you know, all that stuff they try to give you, and they had to detox it. My doctor said, don't take it. So they put me on medical marijuana. I belong to AA. I've been clean 18 years now, since I moved to this city to get away from LA. And I see things happening out here, and you know, I am a medical marijuana carrier. Me and DA Tamrak had a talk. She took a copy of my card because they gave me a ticket, and I said, run my name anytime. You know, because I work with some of the DAs out here and different things. And sad to say, I went to an undisclosed location the other day to get my medicine, and as you can see my face, somebody dragged me out of my car, took it, beat me, took my phone, so I couldn't call anybody for help. Now, if we had a safe place to go, this wouldn't happen. I was pretty upset over this. You can see my face. There's a police report. The city's going to have to incur the costs for this assault because I'm not going to pay for it. You know, and I think if we had a safe place to go, things like this wouldn't happen. You know, I've been in the field a long time, working with sober living and all that stuff. And with the caregiver you were talking about, I have in-home provided service. The doctor I have gave me 153 hours of someone taking care of me, so they have to regulate my caregiver. Like this gentleman was talking about, yes, they have statutes, they have things we have to do. I had to show proof of my disabilities. I'm on SSI now. I can't work. I worked at the homeless shelter for years out here. But with the regulation, this stuff won't go on. Like, in LA, I've been down there. I know what it's like. Like you said, there's a neon pot sign on every corner. We don't want that here. We just want an undisclosed, safe location so we don't get beat up or hurt. I'm already disabled enough. Thank you.
Thank you. January Oello?
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello. Okay.
Thank you for your time. Thank
Yes.
you, Mayor Paris. I'm here to speak for someone who can't speak for themselves tonight. His name is Al Hilton. I know you've heard many stories. His is that he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in December of '06. The tumor of a small sweet potato was removed. He suffered through radiation therapy, chemotherapy for months. He lost around 60 pounds when it was all said and done. He was told that even though his operation was 100% effective, the cancer had returned. This time, surgery is not an option for him. He must go under stronger chemo than he had had before. He's already had to endure a lifetime of radiation. Both the chemo and the radiation are an overwhelming sense of nausea, which is easily controlled for him by medical marijuana. And although California voters statewide approve this treatment permitted, some of us have trouble obtaining legal marijuana from reputable entities. I would have no problem with, this is him speaking, I would have no problem with tax on my medication given the present state of the economy. What I do have a problem with is the availability in a substance that I legally have the right to use. Should there be a place to obtain medical marijuana in every city and town? No. But why should I have to drive 2 hours round trip several times a month when a couple of entities could be opened in Lancaster, therefore serving a growing number of people requiring this form of medication? There are already a couple of established people legally making medical marijuana available throughout the high desert. If these people pass whatever requirements placed on the fledgling industry, they would be permitted to operate from a dwelling within Lancaster city limits. We do not need people already established in LA and other areas like that coming here to open another shop. If they are permitted to do so, then the few people who have sweated and toiled to get this medication for the people of Palmdale, Lancaster, and surrounding areas will be merely cast aside to make a way for the big wheels of LA. This may encourage problems with price control, proper taxing, records keeping, and the elements of the bad parts of LA run up to our high desert areas. This person says that I am very satisfied with Melanie, who operates Holistically Yours from Lancaster. My deliveries are correct and on time. I feel comfortable in dealing with her and our members every time in every form or manner. Let's get 1 or 2 small buildings operating in Lancaster and avoid getting the LA Fat Cats up here to spoil our small and effective system that can operate within guidelines and will be able to serve the area and a sizable number of patients in the Antelope Valley while also bringing additional revenues to our area. I'd like to thank everyone, and I believe that our most important issue is safe access for legal patients. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Melissa Wilk. Is it Chuck? I don't know why he's so much better at this than I am, but he is. Beth Russell.
Lost my glasses.
But he doesn't have his glasses.
Jacques Pentinent? Something close to that?
Whoever that is, they can correct us once they get up here.
Point.
Okay. Is that who it is? Okay, if they could come up then. Okay, let's start with Jack. It's you. Okay, good. If we could have your name again, please.
Jackie Poitevin.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight, sir. My name is Jackie.
If you want to pull, I know there's a sign there saying don't touch the mics, but if you pull it down a little bit, I think we'd be able to hear it better.
Is that good?
Okay, I think that'd be better. Thank you.
My name is Jackie Poitevin. I have lived in the Valley for approximately 20 years. I have worked in the legal field and medical transcription. I am currently unemployed. Unfortunately, I fell sick and had to give up my much-enjoyed work. I have stomach problems, gastrointestinal disease, irritable bowel syndrome, and I also suffer from ulcers. I use marijuana strictly for medical purposes. I find that the marijuana really helps my stomach problems when I get flu-type symptoms, nausea, vomiting, and painful acid reflux. If it wasn't for Melanie and her Holocaustically Yours collective, I don't know how I'd get my medicine. If I had to, I'd probably have to go to the streets, and that would be very scary for a 59-year-old lady.
Thank you. Melissa Wilk. Come on up. How are you?
I'm okay. This is a little bit spooky, you know. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
a little nervous.
It's a lot safer up here than down there, I'll tell you.
You're right. Mayor, council members, I have cancer. I'm dying.
I'm so sorry.
I'm allergic to every kind of medication that there is on the market. And there's nothing I can do about it. Marijuana makes it easy for me to function. Just to function. I don't know if any one of you know anybody who's dying of cancer or who can't get up in the morning and who throws up everything they eat. And you know what's really bad? The people in your life. What's really bad is watching someone who's dying, you know? They have to see it. And you know what's really hard? It's pretending every day that you're okay. Cooking dinner, mowing the grass, acting like everything's okay. Just functioning. It's really difficult. So, for me, it's the only thing that's takes the pain away. It's not a cure. It just helps to eat dinner with my family. And they don't see me in the bathroom throwing everything up. Helps to function. You know, what can I say? The doctors have butchered me. They've given me medicine that's almost killed me while I was in the hospital. And I told them I was allergic to medicine. And there's really nothing they can do. I'm allergic to Tylenol. It makes me, I tear my skin, I itch. So far, marijuana's been the only thing that has made it where I can breathe. And let me tell you what, every day, I mean, it's a battle. So, I'm sorry. But I want to tell you guys, I'm sorry. A lot of people need it to be able just to breathe. Just to breathe. Just to do what you normally need to do. And my family does not even know how bad it is for me. Because I pretend it's good. What I do every day, whatever I do, I make light, everything's good. We're strong, we can do this, we need to do that. And if I need to change a tire, I'll do it. I'll do whatever I need to do. But I'm in 24-hour-a-day pain every single day. This doesn't make me stupid. It doesn't make me want to do stupid things. I can read, I can cook dinner, I can do things I normally do to function. I don't drive. Somebody else will drive me if I have to go to the grocery store or something. But I'm able just to breathe. That's how bad it is for me. And the doctors are just, it's been my experience, haven't helped me. Morphine, I'm so allergic to it, they damn near killed me in the hospital. After they did, I had a bilateral mastectomy done. And what they did to me was awful. Awful. So I need it to be able to survive. So thank you for
your courage, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay.
I really didn't want to come here and tell you this.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Beth Russell? Beth Russell?
Yeah, it's Beth.
Okay. Do you want to come up with her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not used to speaking in front of people.
Me too, obviously.
I'm sorry, what?
She said she's not used to speaking in front of people. Neither am I, but I feel more courage with her up here.
Okay. I need medical marijuana. I have MS. I have 4 herniated discs in my lower back, 2 through 5, with arthritis. There are days when I can't get comfortable in any position, be it standing, laying down, or sitting. For more than 10 minutes at a time. medical marijuana reduces my pain and allows me to do my daily activities with the least amount of pain possible. I myself was on a lot of pain drugs. They had to keep increasing it. You start out with a Tylenol number 4, and before you know it, they want you to wear a morphine patch. I haven't needed that. The medical marijuana helps me. I can't grow medical marijuana in my closet at home. It's just not that easy. I know that different plants are grown for different strains or potencies.
Thank you, Beth.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think she had one line, but she couldn't
Okay.
get there.
Okay.
That's all right. That's all right.
Is it Victoria Sinalo? Georgia Young and Peter Mosheni? Victoria's up first. Okay. And then Georgia, and then Peter.
I'd like to present something to the council, if that's okay. Go ahead.
You know, if we read all the stuff you give us, we won't have time to...
Imagine, exactly. As you all know, I'm Victoria Zavala. I am the director of a nonprofit organization that is a mutual benefit corporation, which is Alternative Healing. Not only have I advocated here throughout the Antelope Valley, it's amazing to see all the familiar faces, patients. We have mutual members, Melanie and I, but the other collectives I really don't know of. And that's the thing here that we need to all understand and implement. You are our policymakers, you're our lawmakers. Ms. Marquez, not too long ago when I was running after you a year ago, just trying to, lobby you and just so that you could understand. And Celio just trying to give you as much medical information and research and science and whatnot. And you guys are very difficult to lobby, I just might say. But basically what I'm trying to say here is that we were there at the Poppy Festival, the Veterans Fall Festival, the Pride Festival, all these events, advocating, educating, and bringing awareness. It's not commercializing, it's not publicization, it's not, any of that. Mr. Wilson has all these stories, and you're right, the AV Press, all this time. But why haven't they called Victoria just once, the advocate, to say, hey, how did it all begin? How do we create a movement? How do we get more awareness? How do we get people on the committee to sit with the council and city attorney and say, we can be a part of this too as well? I did more, like I said. Again, this is probably just so personal because as sick as I am, but I went to Normal. $1,100 I paid about 2 weeks ago. Went to a conference. I stood before them and I said, my name is Victoria Zavala. I'm a 36-year-old Latina. I live in the city of Lancaster. People were saying prior to that we were ground zero, right? Boeing, federal prison, and whatnot. I said, not only do I suffer from one, but 2 debilitating diseases that are incurable. Marijuana is my choice. Yes, cannabis has a lot of research and scientific uses. But I went for more to find out, where do I stand? I have Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal says get your Department of Health Services card. Through the Department of Health Services card, which is your medical marijuana ID program through the county, you get this card, then the Attorney General guidelines, you're protected under that. As a director of a collective, We've been arrested twice. Welcome aboard, other collective people. This is a hard city. This is very, very conservative. And I respect the city that I live in, that I reside in, that my daughter goes to school in, that I'm going to have a future in. We are ready to go. Forms, everything, nonprofit forms. We're not doing anything illegal here. We help our patients, members, nonprofit, mutual benefit. Not only that, but you have to give services. You have to give back. I know sometimes people, it's a little too conservative, but look at all that's passed without all that information in these parks and all this money, and it costs us a lot. We don't have a lot of money. You'll see a denial here letter from Harborside Medical Group because we're not 250,000, because we don't have over 500 and 1,000 members. We're a collective, nonprofit, and a conservative city that's well-educated, and I'm depending on you today as my policymakers, as the leaders, to help form and regulate even a non-conditional use permit, because we don't need a business license. It's a permit.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Georgia Young.
Good evening. My name is Georgia Young. Most of you know me. I'd first like to state I'm a little bit surprised that the council here stated they've met twice but knows little or nothing about the subject and haven't read any of the laws that pertain to the subject at all. As for the sales of marijuana...
Excuse me, no one said that.
Well, I see that they don't know the health and safety code. If I click back in my notes,
Are you here to persuade
anyway.
us, or are you here to castigate us?
Well, first, I would like to address the sales of marijuana and the statement that people can go out and purchase marijuana and then turn around and benefit a profit from it. That's simply not true, as the cooperatives charge about the same price as, what was the term somebody over here used, Joe Blow drug dealer selling 10 kilo, whatever. Okay, so when you pass a law that states the city won't allow a medical marijuana dispensary, you open yourselves up to discrimination of the disabled. I intend to set the precedence for that. I will file a suit if this gets declined. You will not be under the protection of the governmental codes for which you close the Desert Inn. By the way, I did agree with that decision. I suggest the city open a dispensary that they may operate themselves, working with some of the fine people who have volunteered here today, therefore giving them the ability to regulate the use and the dispensing of the medication. The largest problem is finding a, quote, primary care physician. To me, this would be someone who is my doctor in regards to all health issues, not just marijuana, and cares for my health. However, my primary caregiver doctor is afraid to write a prescription for it, as he doesn't wish to suffer the wrath of the federal government. Not only that, but where would I have this prescription filled? Where would I go? There's no pharmacy in which I may purchase medication legally without traveling great distances, which is difficult for a disabled individual. If the city opens a dispensary and goes the route of only charging what it costs them to operate and supply the marijuana, then they can get past the issue of the federal law, which is closing co-ops for, quote, operating a business for the sale of illegal drugs. If you are only charging a reimbursement fee for what it costs you to provide the marijuana, then you would not be held accountable to the federals for operating property for sales. If the city runs a dispensary, then you have a right to say where it should be placed as well. As for regulation of the dose, every other medicine, such as Vicodin, will take 1 or 2 in a 4 to 6 hour period, leaving this up to the patient. Since there are so many different potencies, it makes it very difficult to give a dosage amount. The First Amendment says, quote, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How can we pursue happiness when we're suffering chronic pain every minute of every day? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Peter, help me with the pronunciation.
Hi, my name's Peter Moskeny. I've been a medical marijuana patient since 2004. I have 2 compressed discs in my back. I have degenerative disc disease, and I also suffer from bleeding ulcers. And the one question I have for the council today is by adopting this resolution, who exactly would this harm? I don't see this adopting this would harm anybody. It would probably just end up more or less offending some people. And I think that we can look around the room and see that different people probably in this room are all offended by different things. I'm offended by a lot of things. I'm offended by the amount of liquor stores I see in town. I'm offended by insurance companies. I'm offended by massage parlors. I'm offended by a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because I'm offended by something that it should be a law, that it should not exist. I just don't see where this would harm anybody that has absolutely no knowledge of the law or no knowledge of the usage of marijuana. I challenge anybody about the dosage. When you go to the doctor and you pick up a bottle of 30 Vicodins, it says to take one, but who's going to stop you from taking all 30 if you want to? When you go to the liquor store, you can buy a bottle of alcohol and you can drink it until it poisons you to death. Dosages are, as far as when you are given something, it is up to you what the knowledgeable dosage is. What's written on the bottle is what's written on the bottle. You have to follow what's written on the bottle in order for it to be an accurate dosage. I just think that this is more of an offensive thing that people are offended by, and I can understand that because, like I said, a lot of people are offended by different things. But I strongly urge the council to vote yes on this amendment because you're helping more people than you're hurting. And like I said, I challenge you to say who will actually be hurt by this law. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And last but not least is John Jessia. Is that it? Jessia? Jessie?
I would actually like to start off by commending the City Council and specifically the City Manager's office. I have had the privilege of actually meeting with Mr., forgive me as I butcher your name, Tea Tongo, and the City Attorney. I know they've taken a lot of their time to actually look into this, and I've been called on some of those meetings with them, and me and Kelvin have spoken several times over the phone. You know, the medical marijuana is a very controversial subject till today, and it is very gray. However, I think the biggest thing is, and I think the biggest problem for the city is, they need some type of platform or checks and balances to regulate it. I represent a company called Medical Marijuana, Inc. It's a publicly traded company that is basically a solutions company that put the tracking system together to track the medicine, where it's coming from, who it's going to, how much is being purchased. And basically that's the only way as a city to be able to legalize something and not having a nightmare like Los Angeles did, is by putting some type of system in place, a closed loop system, that's be able to track from seed to final sale. And we offer that today. Because as you can see, and I don't believe it's even debatable today, there definitely is a need for medical marijuana. Myself, I have a staff of attorneys based only on the subject. I have volunteered my assistants and my attorneys at my expense to help write the city ordinance. We're working with the city of Long Beach. We actually have a proposed ordinance in place that should be passed very soon. We worked with the city of Oakland to pass Proposition F. So my time here today is safe. We can help in any way. We'll be more than happy to. And any questions that I can ask for you, I'm more than happy to. As we said, I have a staff of attorneys just focused on this subject, as we are a public company. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Any discussion? Who is going to jump in first?
I will. I'd like to, I guess is it the New Leaf family? Is that any representative that wants to come up and answer some questions? I have some questions for you.
Yes.
So let me understand this, that the main purpose of you forming a cooperative is, or a collective, it says collectives here.
Cooperative.
Cooperative, collective, yeah, I see from the Attorney General's office, and they're calling them collectives too. is that for basically to help out members of your cooperative that can't cultivate for themselves and all the other members that have cards cultivate for them? Is that correct?
Absolutely. We do have members that have the ability to grow their own medicine or grow medicine enough to provide for the members. Pardon. And that's how the members that are not able to grow it themselves can get their medicine.
Now, is every one of you here part of the collective or cooperative?
Not every person here is a member of our cooperative, no. Not currently.
And then what function do they play in that
I mean, everybody here, the four of us yes, absolutely. We are all members of the cooperative. Okay. And then some people throughout the audience.
And then
absolutely.
You each have a card from the LA County saying that you
We each have doctor's recommendations and LA County cards, that's correct.
And LA County cards. Do you have a seller's permit with the Board of Equalization?
We do have a seller's permit with the Board of Equalization, yes, we do.
Okay.
And we do have articles of incorporation.
So you collect sales tax for those that contribute rather than...
Exactly. People can either contribute goods, services, their time spent helping the garden grow, or if they're unable to do that because of their disability or something of that nature, then they are able to provide monetary compensation, and that is taxed, absolutely.
Okay, with the Board of Equalization.
That's correct.
So their contributions are basically because they can't, they're going to have to just contribute.
Absolutely. And another
can't.
thing, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Right.
Another thing that New Leaf Cooperative that we require of our growers is that it is grown in an agriculturally zoned area. We're not necessarily supportive of the neighborhood grow, the house that's happening in the middle of a neighborhood that could be just about anywhere. We definitely require our growers to be in agriculturally zoned areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Clapping for answering questions.
Anyone else? Anything else? Sure.
I have some more comments, but
well, let me define my terms. Collective, cooperative, to me, that's a small group of people, some of whom are buying marijuana, some of whom are growing, and any combination thereof. And the word dispensary would be sort of a storefront operation selling marijuana to generate a profit, I guess, for lack of a better term. Starting at the top, marijuana, and I'm not going to call it medical marijuana because I frankly see no difference between whether you put it in a baggie at a cooperative or a street corner. It's the same product. Marijuana is marijuana. It's illegal at the federal level. Someone stated, Attorney General Eric Holder, speaking on behalf of the President of the United States, said that it's the responsibility of the states to regulate it. That doesn't change the fact that it's still illegal at the federal level, and I'm pretty sure that our Attorney General knows the process to change federal law, and they have not chosen to do that yet. I read my own notes. Some speakers tonight spoke of our patients. They're not your patients. Physicians have patients. One speaker spoke on that there is no way to regulate the dosage of marijuana, and I agree. It's one of the difficulties in providing something that you ingest. I know that the law was written in a way that physicians could give recommendations rather than write a prescription, and I think that was a dodge to get around the federal law. I think I don't know what the purpose of that is. My mother could give me a recommendation from a physician, other than what Prop 215 and what the other acts say, that really doesn't carry much weight. I'm not in favor of any form of a storefront. I am open to the discussion that regulating a collective or cooperative may have a benefit to the city, and that it does give us some regulation. But the regulation I'm looking for is ensuring that the dispensing of marijuana is kept as tight as possible, that it be taxed to the point where it covers the cost of regulating that business, that I foresee it being tight enough that I don't think it would be profitable to run a storefront. I think it should be almost at the level of bartering. It's quite literally one friend or family member helping another. There's a reason why they said primary caregiver, and they defined that. Spending 50% of your time helping someone. That means you're like this. It's not, yeah, the guy down the street needs a primary caregiver. No, it's friends, it's families, it's people who you're intimate with. I don't see a storefront. I don't understand a collective or a cooperative that has hundreds of members. I don't see how that exists, and you can meet the confines of the law. That's all I have at the moment.
Anyone else?
Okay. First of all, personally, I wish we weren't even here. Personally, just to be frank, I think that it's the medical marijuana in some instances is just a ruse to continue on the road of legalization, which I'll just tell you right now, if it's put up for vote for the state of California, I will be voting no. Someone says, do you know anybody who's dying of cancer? Actually, I do. And actually, she's a registered nurse, and we've already discussed this, and she's already told me that she would not use marijuana. She says there are other drugs that she would use, and that was her opinion. There's also, I suffer from migraines, and you could ask my husband. If I got a migraine years ago, I'd be down 2 days. I'd be out for 2 days before I found Imitrex. Imitrex works for me, and I'm very thankful that it does. I know that some of the argument has been, well, you're missing out on all the taxes that could bring into the revenue for, the city and the state, etc. Well, I know that I think the lottery was going to be the answer to all our problems for schools and several other different situations, and that didn't turn out to be true. I don't know that the state, other than the state of California, has any other state gone down the road to make it lenient. I'm sorry, Mr. McEwen, do you know?
I didn't have that, but somebody in the audience just indicated there were 13 states.
13 states. Okay. People mention alcohol. Well, if it were up to me, that wouldn't be legal either. So, and the last thing I will say is I'm very leery of nonprofits. So, reluctantly, very reluctantly, will I ask that this be worked on and brought back. It would have to be very, very stringent and very, very regulated. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Tonight was quite frustrating for me. I think I was a little bit in the same position that Sherry was. And I truly believe that there's some people here that are very sincere about getting relief from the use of marijuana. I don't know if I would classify it as medical marijuana, because we haven't reached that point yet, but at least not from a legal standpoint. The frustration on my part, and I'm just going to be straight up, I don't know what everybody's going to do as far as their communication tonight, but my frustration is the lack of direction from both the federal government to the state government and then to the city. That's where my biggest frustration lies. We all know, and again, I concur there. I think there was some people here that are very genuine and sincere and are finding relief from marijuana, and I believe them. Unfortunately, we all know that there's an underground group that operates throughout the United States and other countries that they don't necessarily use it for medicinal purposes. It's not for relief from an ailment, i.e. cancer, or, we heard tonight some people with discs, herniated discs, other ailments, ulcers. And I'm a firm believer that we ultimately need to solve the problem. It's frustrating for me for it to be thrusted on a city council where it really should have been resolved at the federal level. I bet this was probably, tonight was just as frustrating as it was back in the Prohibition era when there was arguments for alcohol, and I'm sure, and maybe even prior to that with cocaine. But my position is going to be, until I have more evidence to establish a clear-cut use from government entities that establish what is legal and what is not, even though the state is I think they went down a gray area. I think they could have been much more direct and much more descriptive about how local governments should operate within the law. I think it's so gray, and I've heard so much information on both sides. So with that, I'm not going to be proponent tonight to move forward and direct staff to continue to do work in that area. And my apologies, sincere apologies. I've done a lot of work historically in the medical field, volunteering, giving numerous hours. And I know it must be frustrating for you to hear this from somebody that represents city government, but I feel as sincere as you are, I need to be the same with you. My apologies.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's be clear that we're not making a decision tonight, on making cooperatives or collectives and what we're doing. What we're doing tonight is to give direction to staff in forming a committee here to look at drafting an ordinance. Now, that ordinance is going to come back to this council, and at that time, this council is going to decide whether or not we're going to adopt an ordinance like that or not. That's how it works. I mean, there's lots of ordinances that have been brought up by other council members over the past couple of years, and they've been written and brought up, and they've been voted down, or they've been changed. Looking through, Mr. McEwen, I've looked through all the different health and safety and also the stuff from Attorney General Brown, and they sort of use collectives and cooperatives back and forth. I mean, the health and safety code, I got it all bookmarked here in my PDF file. Section 11362.775 calls it collective or cooperative cultivation. So, but the key, somebody came up here and said that, all you need is a conditional use permit. That's incorrect. The Attorney General also came back and wrote that, you need a business license and sales tax and a seller's permit. Now, somebody said that, there was one gentleman that said that, well, we don't have any control over that because it's a federal thing or it's a state thing. State preempts us. Sorry. Now, when it comes to business license and controlling the businesses in our city, that's us. I think that this is like This is like, to some extent, like alcohol. Alcohol is out there and can be manufactured, and you can make a still, but the government regulates it because there's a lot of abuse. And anybody out there that, and they're shaking their heads, anybody out there that says that these cooperatives and collectives and dispensaries are not abused has been talking the truth up here, because they are abused. They're in LA. They're being abused. We had a massage parlor problem and being abused as a front for prostitution. Now, that doesn't mean that every collective or every distillery or every massage parlor is illegal and doing something illegal. No, it's just that those particular businesses are set up for abuse if they're not strictly regulated. And so, I mean, I feel I don't want to get in the situation that LA did and have something pop up. While it's still a federal, I agree with some of the council members, while it's a federal issue and they're not handling it, there's a lot of things that they don't handle, and we handled one tonight by looking at illegal aliens working in our city. So I am still in favor of going forward and looking to see if we can draft an ordinance that, and it's probably not going to make probably not going to make the New Leaf family happy with what we draft, but it will allow very, very strictly, at least the ordinance that I'm thinking of, very strictly, those that really need it. Because it's the only way we can do it. It's been abused all over. Gang members get into it. There's lots of crime. We've had reports there's excess robberies. We've studied this. So I'm in favor of us forming a committee and forming an ordinance and getting it together to see if we can. If we can't, then the council's got to decide whether or not that's not strict enough. We've done it for strip joints, and the one that we did for strip joints, there's not a strip joint in Lancaster because it was so strict. But it was legal.
I thought it went out of business.
There was a strip joint. Not the kind that they wanted to get going. Yeah. So with that matter, I want to be very clear that this is a public safety issue, and if there's something that can be abused, just like everything else that we regulate, it will be very, very strictly regulated. And there will probably be, in fact, hearing some of the testimony and the emails that I've gotten, I don't want to point any fingers, but there's a number of you that aren't doing it legal right now, even if you are doing it, in the city. Besides not being in the city, you're not following state law. You're not following what you're supposed to. So with that, I'll move it back to the mayor now.
You were right. It was in Palmdale.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, I thought you were the police officer. All right. He got me.
What happened to shop local?
I'm sorry, that was just a setup. I couldn't help it.
Okay, I've thought about this a lot. Let me tell you where I'm at, and I'm going to ask you to let me put a committee together. First of all, I don't want the federal government to do anything. I really don't even want the state government to do anything, because for 30 years they failed, and they continue to fail us. That doesn't mean I agree with the people clapping. It doesn't. I mean, it's no secret. I'm a recovering drug addict. I think drugs are the most horrible thing that has ever happened to America. And I think it's been handled abysmally by the federal government and the state government. And I think that one of the reasons I love sitting in this seat is the opportunity to try to figure out new ways to do things. And we may fail abysmally at it. But most of the problems I see facing our neighborhoods are local problems that if we just had the courage to do something about them that was different than what everybody else does, maybe we might stumble onto something that works. And Beth Russell and Melissa Wilk, it is not within my capacity to deny you anything that might help you. I just cannot do that. And I don't think that there's anybody here willing to deny you anything that would help you. And this obviously, I'm a believer that this helps you. what I would like to do is not bury our head in the sand. I would like us to recognize that probably in most neighborhoods there is somebody selling this stuff totally in an unregulated fashion. And let's take the bull by the horns and make it so that we comply with the law and protect our children at the same time. I think we could do that. And what I would like the council to do is to authorize me to put together a committee in conjunction with the city attorney to draft an ordinance that complies with the state law, that will protect our children, and will maybe get this out of our neighborhoods so that the law is complied with. And so I'm open to somebody making that motion. And I recognize what I'm asking you to do. I know, as well as the four of you, that in the next election, they're going to be sending out hit mailers that we brought marijuana to Lancaster, which is totally absurd, but it is something they will do. It is going to require some courage to do this. And I would ask you to have the courage. Let's figure out a way that's different than how everyone else has failed. And maybe we will succeed.
Well, with that, unless there's any dissent from Mr. Mann or Mr. Cilio, if they could agree that we could move forward with the mayor forming a committee to come back with an ordinance, and then can always get a no vote then, or if it's not strict or whatever, but if not, then we can, because this is only staff direction, so.
I'm not supportive of moving forward. Okay. On a more personal note, I understand that there is a segment of our population that is in pain, and that they use marijuana to relieve their pain. I think they have been not been treated fairly by our medical system, in that I don't think they have either availed themselves or have been made aware of what is available out there. And I say that, and before you start booing and hissing me, I say that from 25 years in the medical field. I say that from having more than one cancer patient cared for in my house up till the day they went to the hospital to die. I know exactly what it is and what it's like. I see it almost every day. I also know what is available to relieve pain. It's not easy. It's a difficult field of medicine, and it takes getting the right person to work with you to relieve your pain. And I think there are legal ways to do it, that you wouldn't even find yourself in this mess. I think that's the appropriate direction to go.
Beth and Melissa, I want to apologize to you. That is ludicrous. The reality... The reality is that as far as pain management goes for chronic pain patients, there is a limited ability to treat it, and there are millions of people who spend every waking moment in some level of agony simply because the science is not there to fix it. And it is also ludicrous to say that only physicians have patients. Chiropractors have patients, nurses have patients, physical therapists have patients. And I would submit to you, Mr. Cilio, that even you have patients when you go in and do your ultrasound with them. They are your patient. Now, I'm sorry I get so upset about this, but I cannot bear people like Melissa and Beth coming up here and us telling them to go find a doctor. That I'm just sorry. I don't need you. I don't need your help, okay? Let's stay with the rules. And Sherry, I know how absolutely difficult this is for you. But I would like the ability to put together a committee to try to put together an ordinance to follow the state law. And if you and Ron would support me in that, we have the votes.
I'm getting to the motion, since we didn't get the consensus, and I understand I didn't ask you, but since we don't have a consent, it only takes one, so. But I want to make no mistake about what my position is on this. There's probably, if there's, say there's 10 of you out there that have cooperatives or collectives, our ordinance is going to give us the tooth to shut probably 9 of you down. And some of you are going to go to jail. Okay? So it's not just
some
like
will go to jail if they continue to break the law.
with the stuff. There are people out there that are doing it illegally. Okay? Maybe not, I can't point to anybody out there, but I can guarantee you that there are collectives just like LA. That's my standing on it, is if we don't, we do much better at regulating than we do prohibition. And I want something that's strict so we can put the illegal ones out of business. And as long as the state is giving this narrow definition of what they're allowing, then, that's fine. But I think I don't want to get in the same situation as LA. So I'm going to move that the mayor appoint a committee of 2 council members, and but I can guess which those 2 will be, and 2 people from the criminal justice and the city attorney to move forward on crafting an ordinance.
I'd like it a little broader. I'd like to be able to pull from any of the commissions.
It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I just like to be very clear again, is that I'm not voting for marijuana. I'm not voting for medical marijuana. I really don't like it that the federal government, as far as I'm concerned, the federal government and the state government have put us in this situation that we have to do this locally. All I'm agreeing to right now is to go forward, to write up an ordinance, to get this committee, and I do not want to be part of the committee. Put a committee together, put an ordinance together, and bring it back. But I am not saying that I will vote for that.
I think I've already made my statement.
Okay, so we have a second. Sherry, we have a second.
I will reluctantly second that.
Let's vote. It's 3-2. Thank you. And now we'll move. Do you all want to take a break? Let's take a break. Number 4.
I think it's my turn again. Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Welcome to the fire.
The matter before us is the question of whether we put on the ballot in April a measure to extend the term of the mayor from 2 years to 4 years. State law provides that where we already have an elected mayor, which we do, that we can place before the voters the question of whether the elected mayor should serve a term of 2 years or 4 years. Since he already served a term of 2 years, what we'd be putting on there is a very clear proposition about extending that term to 4 years. And if you wish to proceed with that, we'd bring back the resolutions with the normal election resolutions, which will be before you at the November 10th meeting. The other issue with respect to the changing the term would be the effective date of the measure. And as I've outlined in my staff report, there's a decent argument that it could be made effective immediately for the 2010 election. It very clearly could be made effective for the 2012 election. So I would look for your guidance on that and what you want to do with that. And it's 2 questions, whether it goes on the ballot at all, and second, if it does go on the ballot, whether it becomes effective in 2010 or 2012. And then we'll bring back the necessary resolutions to match that.
Thank you. Let's open the public hearing. We'll start with Richard Cook.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I've lived in Lancaster since 1953, not the Antelope Valley, Lancaster. I grew up in a great neighborhood with great neighbors, some of them being the Bazigian family, the Vieira family. This has been my city. And I'm not opposed to, I want to see a mayor race go for 4 years. I see the inequality of having city council members at 4 years or mayor at 2 years, where mayor can't get his programs through. What has happened in the city of Lancaster in the last few years, we have changed from through a swing of good to bad to great again. This last event over the weekend was fantastic. I'm proud to be in Lancaster once again. I have spoke before when things are bad, and I'm now saying when things are great, I'm happy to be in Lancaster. When I see the inequality, I can't see how a mayor can have a 2-year term, get halfway through that term, and then have to stop and think about being reelected if you want to run again. If you do, I will support you. But let's take you even out of the mix. Any mayor that wants to get things done can't do it in 2 years. It takes too much time. We need a mayor that can go in a 4-year term. We need someone that will support Lancaster for 4 years, not just 1 year and then think about reelection. I urge you, all of you, to look at making this an adoption of a 4-year mayor term. Whether now, whether 2012, it has to be done. It's the only way Lancaster can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Arnold Rodeo.
I'm against it.
No kidding.
And I think Mr. Cook gave you all the good reasons. You know, if you're a good mayor, you don't have to campaign. You don't have to even run for re-election. It's going to happen because the people are going to support you and they're going to vote for you. And the idea that you can do whatever you want for a year and then you got to clean up your act for the year to get re-elected, but if you're elected for 4 years, then you can do whatever you want for 3 years and then clean up for your act for the wrong year, I think is really a lousy reason for this. Another condition on
Excuse
this
me,
is also,
you're not saying that's my reason, are you?
I don't know what your reasons are.
So that would be your reason?
Maybe it's because you want to save $1 million
or you're just
every 2
campaigning
years.
us there?
I don't know. But
what did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said maybe it's because you'd said you're going to spend $1 million to get reelected, and if you get elected every 4 years, you save a lot of money.
You're up there campaigning. Okay, go on.
No, not me. But anyhow, that's what I'm against it. The other thing is it doesn't give you a rotation of the council. One of the things it'll do is eliminate the ability of somebody that's sitting on the council to run for the mayor's seat and retain a council seat. It's because you'll have the same council seats up for re-election each time with the mayor, because you won't have the staggering of it either. I think that the proof of the pudding is we just have to look down south. If you're a good mayor and the people want you, you can be re-elected over and over and over again, and you'll serve more than 2 years, more than 4, more than 10, more than 20. So I don't think you need it. And the other side of this is if you're a bad mayor and we get somebody in that the people don't want, they're stuck with them for 4 years. This allows them to be changed every 2. So I think if you're good, you have nothing to worry about. If you're bad, the people will tell you. Thank you.
Wait a minute, Mr. Rodeo, before you go, well, I got you up here. What did you think of the metamorphoses in the Grand Prix? You weren't there. Oh. A birthday party for a whole week? Wow. Robert Teller.
Mr. Mayor, City Council.
Mr. Teller.
My card says I'm opposed, and there's a lot of reasons why. Number one, the mayor at this time was elected by about a 20% election results, which means there's 80% of the people in the city of Lancaster that you don't represent.
I don't think that was quite those numbers, but certainly I understand what you're saying.
There's a good contingency that you don't represent. And while we may have a good mayor now, there's things coming up right now. Mr. Runner is looking at going in another direction. Usually the mayor is the one that looks at possibly moving up.
Can absolutely assure you that it's not going to happen.
Okay. Well, we don't know that. If you're asked to go, you may
Will not go.
accept it. But what I'm saying is, if we have a good mayor now, and I'm not saying we don't, I'm just saying we've got a good mayor now, we could get a bad one when you decide to go a different direction. You may get fed up with it in 2 more years or whatever. But if we get a bad one, we're stuck with him for 4 years. And you've seen what can happen when you get politicians that don't agree. We had a city manager that was excused from his contract, and everybody thought he was going to be good coming in, but he couldn't get along. We could have the same thing with the mayor. We could have the same thing with the city council. Right now, you guys seem to be working as a team. It seems to be good for the city of Lancaster. We're getting a lot of things done, but this could turn the other way. I'm all for a 2-year term, and as Mr. Rodeo said, if you've got things going and things are working good, you'll get reelected. Down south, we see the same thing with Mr. Ledford. He has no opposition, and I think the same thing would be good here. I know that he has a 4-year term, but we also see what the results of that 4-year term is. That city's in problems. We're not. And that's the reason I'm in opposition. I think we're doing good as it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Teller. Eric Moravez.
Thank you, Mayor Paris, council members. I'm absolutely in favor of a 4-year term for mayor, and I hope it goes on the ballot as quickly as possible and adopted as quickly as possible. I've been in front of the council now just a few times on some very controversial subjects, and quite frankly, they weren't agreed upon as what I would have thought they would have been. Well, so be it. 1 or 2 things does not make an entire tenure of anybody. The mayor is kind of the spearhead, sets the tone, sets the direction of where we would like to take this city. It takes a long time to get those things enacted. It's not something that happens overnight. And I'd like to see that matched up with the council members. Well, because the mayor is just like a president in a way. Everybody forgets that the president is also backed up by who? The legislature. Okay, well, everybody forgets about the 4 other people who are sitting up here in addition to the mayor. And they're staggered. So you can't put all the emphasis on one person. If there's something you agree with or disagree with, it's a collective group that we have to look at. Too often we hear about the individuals. Too often I'm hearing from individuals saying, well, 2 years, because if we don't like them, we can get them out. Well, we have a staggered council group, and it takes a consensus, or the majority of those individuals to come together. The mayor just sets the tone, and there's just more than one thing out there that people need to look at when deciding what's good, what's bad about a certain legislative body in the city. And I think that we need to give all that opportunity out there. But in turn, I would also like to see that we have term limits enacted within the city. 2 or maybe 3 terms. So again, when you have a mayor who has a vision for the city, give him that 4 years, and give him a little more time. But over a certain period of time, things become stale. Let's bring in fresh people with new ideas. And that's the things that I think we need to be looking at in the future here. So thank you.
Thank you. Close the public hearing. He buzzed in first.
First of all, glad you're not running for Senator Assembly, but have you thought about governor? That's more your style. Seriously. Anyway, having said that.
I don't want to spend $100 million getting there, and unfortunately that's what it takes now.
Yeah,
$250.
Little rich for my blood too.
That's what it would take to get you elected.
I'll just say that's about what it costs nowadays, I think.
Few words on this. what's better for a city, a 2-year or a 4-year term mayor? I think there's arguments on both sides. I could argue either side of that. I'm about 49, 51% on this. The argument for a 4-year term we've heard. It allows a mayor to get his program through in a little bit less uninterrupted fashion. The argument for a 2-year term is that he is held a little more responsible to the people who elected him. So why should a mayor be handcuffed by a 2-year term rather than having a 4-year term like the rest of the council members? Because the position is a little different. He gets the bully pulpit. He gets to make appointments subject to ratification of the council, so there's a balance there. So you could argue either way. I think just for terms of clarity, if we choose to go with the 4-year term, it would make sense to me to have that, put that out to the people to decide in this April to become effective the following term. I just think it's a bit confusing. We've had confusing votes with referendums in the past. I'd like to not repeat those. I think it would be simpler to simply put the question out there in April to be effective 2012. It avoids the confusion of someone running for mayor and they may be running for a 2-year seat or a 4-year seat. I think just for clarity, it'd be nice to know how long that term is. I don't think there is a drastic change in the direction the city will take or how effective the mayor would be if in April 2010 he gets a 2-year or a 4-year seat. So why not delay that implementation until 2012, make it nice and clean, and people get to decide, and whatever they decide goes.
Yeah, I think that Ed brought out a couple of good points in relationship to the control that a mayor being elected every 2 years. I think if we look back, Mayor Roberts I think he actually was reelected, I don't know how many terms, 6 at least, because I was 5? Yeah, 6, because I was his appointment 6 times, so I think that's what got me to stay on the Planning Commission. And I have all the confidence in the world that as what was already stated earlier when Mr. Rodia was asked about this weekend, I think that if we took a poll, my gut sense is that the current mayor would pull a whole lot better than our president, that's for sure, and or our governor. And I think that Mayor Parris would get reelected. And I think that I have all the confidence in the world that he'd be in this position for as long as he wants to be. That's my sense. And, if we go to a 4-year term, again, I think that historically we had some problems with things not being clear as far as dates, and that would have to be to get my vote, it would have to be utmost clear with a date attached to it, because I think in the past there was some misunderstanding there when we had an item on the ballot. So that's my thoughts.
I'll say what I said before is when it was first brought up, I thought, why didn't we think of that sooner? And I would not be opposed to it being on the ballot in April for 2010. I can see where some people would be, do I use the word cynical? But to put it 2012, I wouldn't be opposed to either one. I do think it needs to be a 4-year term, and I think that that's only, I know I said it before, if I had to run again, right now, I had to think about running again, that would just make me so upset. But because you're just starting to really understand and get into I don't like that word groove, starting to get into some kind of a system or something, I guess. But anyway, then to have to stop right now and think about running again. And I said that before. So I'm very for it. I'm willing to go with 2010 or 2012.
You know, I think we're going into that silly season again, and people are going to start picking and chewing at little things. We're going to have people showing up that we haven't seen for, a year and a half or so, and then making little comments. And yes.
They look a little demoralized. I was expecting about 50 people here.
But because we're, I think, less than 6 months away from our election, and that's usually when we start getting those kind of comments and everything. It is anybody who's come up here and said, well, you have to vote the person out, or if they're doing a good job. In all the other forms of government, it seems like it's the opposite. The governor's elected for 4 years, the assembly's every 2 years, the president's every 4 years, the congressmen are every 2 years. So the executive is usually the one that is a longer term. If you're talking about other cities that are general law cities that don't have a directly elected mayor, somebody talked about rotating and having the ability for council members to rotate into the position by an election. When they rotated, guess what? It was, they were still elected for 4 years. They all had equal votes. And, so, I don't think we're ready to make all of the council members elected every 2 years and the mayor every 4. I think it should have been 4 years from the first time that they did it, because that's the way it should be. Every 4, have a 4-year term. The council's 4 years terms. It's the same thing. The argument that you would say about the mayor would be the same that you would say about a council member. 4 years, maybe we should re-elect them every 6 months. If they're not doing a good job in 6 months, let's get rid of them and let's get a whole new thing. That makes an unstable government. And but I agree with the rest of you. I think having it 2012 is less confusing. I think it sets the pace. It takes a little, maybe the wind out of some of the rhetoric that's been being said. You do something for a good reason, and it doesn't matter because we're 6 months from an election, and you're going to have a lot of silliness and stupid statements that come out. It doesn't matter how good something is. That's just the season it is. So I think maybe that's the best way. It takes the confusion, takes the silliness out, and I think I support what the other ones are saying, that let's put it on the ballot for 2012. I think it's the right thing to do.
If I asked you to do it for 2010, could I persuade you? But don't answer yet, because it's already been decided. Carol has already said it'll be 2012. Carol's my wife. But I don't want to pass up the opportunity to talk about why this is a good idea. The reason it's a good idea is because you risk every 2 years a total regime change. If the other side had been successful in the last election, let's be realistic, we would not be in the position we are today. We probably wouldn't even have Mark as a city manager. We would have turned back the clock in ways that would have been unforgivable. Because what we have seen in the last year with this staff is incredible progress in incredible ways. And we did that because I think that this council has made it clear we want you to take risks. We want you to do things that have never been done before. We want you to help us reinvent the mid-sized city. And they've taken that challenge and have run with it. But along the way, I step on toes constantly. And no, Mr. Rodeo, it's not a popularity contest. And no, I cannot be a good leader if I'm constantly worried about how popular I am with everybody who's in the tent. That's why we were in such a mess to begin with. And if anyone thinks that we should be copying another city instead of doing what we're doing now, you really need to vote for somebody else, because we are reinventing how cities are managed and how people live. And I think that the citizens of this community are totally engaged in that happening. And I don't know, sometimes people think leadership is a popularity contest. Leadership is not a noun, it's a verb. and it means constantly pushing the envelope. You know, what we're doing with the neighborhoods and putting the churches and houses in the neighborhoods creates incredible controversy. You know, next, in 2 weeks, we're going to be seeking a charter city amendment. You know, incredible controversy. And, you know, we could do it like other cities and hide things in it so that nobody really knows why we're going to be a charter city, or we could be transparent. And I think you're going to see that we're going to be transparent, which creates controversy. The only way we're going to thrive is to not run from the controversy. And I don't know that you get to do that if every 2 years your mayor has to worry about being reelected. I guess we have to decide, what do we want? Do we want leadership that is willing to take huge risks for huge gains? Or do we want to just be a victim of the state and federal government? Because that's really what we've been up until now, is victims of the state and federal government. You see it in the marijuana cooperatives. You see it in countless other ways. You see it in the immigration policies. We're taking the bull by the horns, and we're actually wrestling it to the ground and trying to make this a better place. And I don't really think that people that succeed me are going to be able to do that if they're worried every 2 years how popular they are. But I could also see that, you know, people who worry about how popular they are every 2 years are pretty safe in this position. They don't push the envelope at all. All they do is go along, and they could be elected for 20 years. If I'm reelectable 10 years from now, I did not do my job, you know, because it accumulates. And I shouldn't be mayor 10 years from now, or even 8 years from now. I agree that term limits are a great idea. If I haven't created 20 people that are more capable of sitting in this chair than I am, then I failed. You know, the whole idea is you get people totally engaged, and you give them the ability to learn how to do this successfully in ways that all of us can benefit from. I've enjoyed this job tremendously because of this staff, and with that, I would like it to be 2012. I may or may not be in a position to run that in 2012, and talking to my wife, I doubt it, but that's what I would like. And if somebody would make the motion, let's put it on the ballot and see what the voters say.
I move that we change the mayoral term of office to a 4-year term on the ballot at 2012 to be effective.
I'll second that.
It's unanimous. It's unanimous. Moving on. CA item 1, the invocation, Mayor Smith. Vice Mayor Smith.
We have some speakers' cards, but it's not a public hearing, so I can go ahead and state what I want first, right? And then we can take some comments before we make a motion or decide. You know, recently we had the ACLU do some fundraising in our city, as they usually do, by trying to get a lawsuit going. That's how they make their money. Okay. That's what it is. You know, we implemented an ordinance, one that's upheld scrutiny in other states. We've had little controversy from it, mostly support, and not only in the newspaper, but also from emails and phone calls and stuff that we've had. And we talked last time about maybe putting something on the ballot, so I proposed this, to put this on the ballot and be clear on the reason why. And it says in here advisory measure, but I don't want it as an advisory measure. I want it as a statement, or however it goes on, as a direction for the council. And the reason for that is because, one is, I believe that it will pass. I know this community. A lot of you know this community. This community has a lot of people of faith. And it's just not faith in particular churches, but our ordinance allows any of the churches that are there to be participating in the invocations, and randomly chosen, the way the ordinance is written, to practice their constitutional free exercise rights of expression. So this would be on the ballot here if it's approved, and it would be in response to the complaint of the ACLU with respect to the invocations containing references to Jesus Christ. Shall the City Council continue its invocation policy of randomly selecting local clergy of different faiths to deliver the invocation without restricting the content based on their beliefs, including references to Jesus Christ? And then that would be placed on the ballot. So we have some speakers' cards.
Arnold Rodeo.
My only concern is, when I read it, it was an advisory vote, and I would like a commitment from the council, either way it goes, that they do the will of the people, because we had an advisory vote, it changed in the elections to November, and it passed. And it was decided that people were too confused, and the council didn't follow the direction of the people. So regardless of how this vote goes, I would like a commitment from the council, and I think Ron had indicated this, that that's what would be followed. Thank you.
Well, do you have a position one way or the other?
I was raised to end a prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. That's how I end my personal prayers, but that's me.
Thank you. Yul Gavargis.
My name is Yul Gavargis. I've been in Antelope Valley for 38 years. I came from Iran, and I've not been in any community activism. I'm not a community activist. I don't belong to any churches locally. But I was born in Iran, and I saw the atrocities of dictatorship. Hitlers of this world, Stalins of this world, and now who? Who's going to tell me I cannot mention the name Jesus Christ in my home, in my heart, in my soul, in my city? That's why I came to this country, because George Washington was Christian, Benjamin Franklin was Christian, Abraham Lincoln was Christian. When I crossed the border from Mexico, San Diego, San Clemente, San Juan Capistranos, San Fernando, Santa Barbara, all the way to San Francisco, I think this country is Christian. And if Mr. Obama in Egypt says this is not a Christian country, he's wrong. I don't know, maybe he was pushing for his Peace Nobel Prize. I don't know. This is a Christian country. That's why I came here. My children, my two sons, 5 and 8, Darian John and Ilya Joseph, they're going to grow up to be Christians. I don't push it on anybody. I've been 30 years in Palmdale. I had the bar 15 years, Louisiana Heights in Palmdale. I never went out there preaching Jesus Christ. Yeah, I beat the crap out of people who were smoking marijuana in the parking lot, because I don't believe in that crap. 3 of my sisters, they're recovering from cancer. None of them smoke pot. My mom died of cancer. But we don't believe in that. There is medical world out there. There's other alternatives. Don't give me that. Anyhow, I beg the city not to give up the prayers to Jesus Christ. You see, before dawn, before cock crowed, Jesus told Peter, "You're going to deny me 3 times." And he said, "No, Lord, I won't." And he did. And I told you, I don't go to any activism, community activist. I'm not. But when this time I found out they were going to deny Jesus, I want to come here and I say, please don't deny him. They already denying him in our schools. They took the name of God out of the schools. Don't do it here, please. And I read this article, that's why I'm here, Mr. Mayor. Bob Wilson wrote this, that you might be incarcerated for that. Please count me in. I'm going to go along with you. God is my witness. Thank you.
Thank you. So, something tells me I wouldn't do well in jail. Darlene Peterson.
What I have deducted since the prayer issue came up is that the citizenry, that's not easy to say, is almost evenly divided. An election will not solve the issue, as Mayor Paris stated previously. However, if you must put it on the ballot, by all means do so. However, let's not ever again play games with an advisory vote only. On a recent vote concerning an advisory vote only, We were told we didn't understand the issue. Give us a break. We understand quite well that the advisory vote only issue is nothing more than a ploy to hedge your bets if the electorate doesn't vote the way some of you may have wanted us to vote. You either want our opinion or you don't. Don't look for a dictatorial way to upset the Democratic apple cart. Quite frankly, if it becomes an advisory issue only, I will not vote on it at all, and I will encourage everybody I know, don't vote because you're wasting your time and money. Personally, I think you should drop the whole ballot issue and either go with the resolution you already have in place and let the chips fall where they may, or at each meeting have the mayor ask for a minute of silence stating that it's for prayer of each person's own choosing or not. So, I have time left. Would you credit that to my account for next week? Then well, then I could have 4.5 minutes.
They don't call me the evil queen for nothing.
I'm not sure we have an anytime minutes policy, do we?
I think for the record, that's the first time that she's referred to herself as the evil queen. Isn't that right, Mr. Bazigian?
That's the first public reference to that in 5
that's
years.
funny.
That was terrific. Kenneth Jones.
Well, I'm Kenneth Jones. I've lived in Lancaster since 1976, and I like it here. I'm a desert rat.
A newbie.
I have a stamp that I put on my letters when I write people or send off bills where it says that I'm Kenneth Jones, Senior Master Sergeant, U.S. Air Force, retired. Now, I say that because I spent 21 of the best years of my life in the United States Air Force. And all that time, I felt like I was defending people's rights, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and protect the President, even if I didn't agree with who was President. When I was given orders, I obeyed the orders. As a military man, I really was serving because I wanted to defend the rights of United States citizens. I don't understand why it should be necessary to put an issue like this to vote. When we've been using the name, and I'm going to take the liberty, we've been using the name Jesus Christ as long as we've been a nation. It's always been that way. Now, I'm a Christian, and there are a lot of different types of Christians. They don't all believe exactly the same. But I pray for this council quite often. And when I pray for this council, I say, Father, I come to you in the name of Jesus Christ. And after I've said my prayer, I say, in Jesus' name, I pray. And I do that because I follow Jesus Christ. And I'm not advocating that everybody has to follow Jesus Christ, because there are different people that follow different religions and call God by different names. And they're free to do that. But Jesus told me in his word, whatsoever ye ask in my name, I'll give it you. And so for me to exercise my religion, I have to open with the name of Jesus Christ, and I have to close with his name. And if you select somebody to pray for this council, regardless of what religion they're from, they should close it the way they normally close it. And if you don't agree, don't say amen.
Thank you. Jennifer Williams.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Williams. I'm also not a public speaker or I'm just a normal citizen. But I have been following politics more recently in the last few years. I have lived here in Lancaster for the last 10 years, and I'm proud to be a citizen here in Lancaster. I love this city, especially recently under this the city management. I have been engaged, as a word that you use so often, Mayor, and I love seeing what's going on here. It is exciting, it's invigorating, and I love just being in the city at this time. And I'm excited about our future. And I am extremely proud of our council at this time to take on this fight and to keep the words "In God We Trust" on the wall, and to take on the ACLU at this time and anyone else who I would call a bully at this time. I don't like the idea of any organization like the ACLU bullying our city into changing how we do our business. And some may say that they're not bullying us, that they're representing citizens of our city. But if you look at, I look at different cases that the ACLU has represented, and I don't see them representing many Christians. I see them taking on many anti-Christian cases. And so I do think that they do seek out anti-Christian cases, and this is just one more case for them. For us, it's personal, and I do see them as taking a bully stance toward us. And so I'm pleased that the council has taken on this fight to completely represent our city still. And so I am nervous, sorry. I am just a mom. Well, I don't just say I'm just a mom. I am a mom. I'm proud to be a mom. It's the best job I have. I love my job as a mom, and I take it very personally. And I do it every day with the best ability that I have. And I'm concerned for my children's future. And I'm just concerned with our liberties being taken away from us daily. And different organizations, the different politicians with their agendas that we see. And as the gentleman said earlier on a different issue, I'm probably going to misquote him, but he said something to this effect of, just because you are offended by something, it doesn't mean that it should be illegal. And if someone's offended by the name of Jesus Christ, it doesn't mean that his name is illegal, and it should not be considered illegal. And that's just my take on that. And I think our founding fathers had that same take, and I think that's the main reason why so many people came to this country to begin with, for the freedoms, for religious freedoms, for freedom of speech, to find a way to govern themselves in a more democratic way. And thank you so much for letting me speak even in my most nervous terms.
Thank you very much. Okay, we closed the public hearing. That was the last speaker.
Well, that being the case, unless there's some kind of dissent from the council, a little dissent. Okay, go ahead.
Well, some of it's on the wording. No matter which way we go, can we not use the name ACLU in the wording? Can we phrase it without that? I just hate to give them the free advertising.
I agree with that.
Okay. Let's strike in response to the complaint of the ACLU with respect to invocations containing, let's see, let's start with.
You could
with
just
respect,
say in response to recent complaints.
No, just let's say with respect to invocations containing references to Jesus Christ. Just start with that. Can't we?
I prefer what Mr. McEwen is saying, because I think that a lot of voters are not going to be as informed as the issue.
No, you're right about that.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just strike the ACLU in response to complaints, to recent complaints. A recent complaint.
You know, the thing that disturbs me about the ACLU and this whole activity is they create the impression that there's somehow a majority. And I think there's such an infinitesimal minority. And that's one of the reasons why I like this initiative. You know, I think we are a godly city. And I think we should make it so that there's, I'm sorry, the public hearing's closed. I think we should make it so that there is absolutely no mistake about it. And I think that most of the hardworking families in this community, when times are tough, they work harder and pray. Let's do it as a city. So
it's going to say then, in response to a recent complaint with respect to the invocations, and then continuing, right? Mr. McEwen, got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this a binding referendum?
This is a binding referendum.
Rather than an advisory
For the
vote.
next 100 years, unless the Supreme Court tells us we can't, that's what we're going to have to do.
So the effect of this, if we didn't have this, we have our policy in place and we continue to do what we're doing, and that could be changed by a future council.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it's not...
We have a binding referendum. Does this help or hinder us in a courtroom should the ACLU choose to move forward? Does it strengthen our position? Do you think it makes a difference?
I don't know that it strengthens the position. It doesn't hurt the position.
Okay.
I think it tells them exactly what kind of community we are.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, if there's no dissent, then that's the direction from council that you'll bring back to us an ordinance. A referendum to vote to put on the.
It'll be part of the election resolutions brought to you on November 10th.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so we'll do it at the same time we do the Charter City thing?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'll come back. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Is, first of all, to Mr. Jones, thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for taking that oath and taking it sincerely.
You're quite welcome. I gave up prayer meeting tonight because I wanted to support you folks up there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your prayers. We appreciate it. Today, I have been struggling with this because this is not something that is just frivolous. We've already taken a stand. The poll in the AV Press, people wanted us to take a stand because I think Americans are tired of seeing the ACLU called in to an area by probably one person or just a few to shut down people's freedoms of of speech. I think of the Kern County and the cross that they're trying to remove now that's been there since the 1930s in respect and remembrance of those that have given their life for the freedoms in this nation. And so I want it just to be known that prayer to me is very sacred and holy, and that when I do pray and I use the name of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that it's something very serious. And I hope that putting this on the ballot would be helpful should we have to go to court with the ACLU. But I just wanted to say that. Thank you. And I did want to mention that I really do like that, what you said, that the ACLU was here recently in their fundraising efforts. And they were solicited. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we don't need a vote. All right, great
direction.
Thank you. City Manager?
Just thank you all again for the card and the support for a busy month.
You guys did work your rears off.
It's a lot harder than I did, believe me. There were a lot worked harder than I did on it. There's a lot of unsung heroes in all these events.
Mr. Bozigan, excuse me, was it third place that you came in
No,
the race?
I think that's correct.
I think so.
actually.
There's about 20-some people in the race, if I recall.
No, we're
I was
talking about
the first one.
The first one, yeah.
Well,
Of course, I think I came in like sixth,
yes, I think my time beat yours. I did check that, by the way.
but I did have a lot of fun.
On the first one, I can't tell if Mr. Bazigian came in second or third or whatever. I was already having dinner.
Yes, we know, Ron. Okay, city clerk.
Back to business. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time for you to address the City Council on any items that are not on the agenda. You'll find speaker cards at the back of the council chambers. We ask that you fill them out as clearly and concisely as you can, so that if the city manager or the city staff needs to get in touch with you, they will have the correct information. We do appreciate that you sometimes request to make comments before your 3 minutes begin, but please understand your time does begin when you start to speak. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. If you choose to ask a question during this time, any response by council will not extend your 3 minutes. When you approach the podium, you will see that there are 3 lights. The green light comes on when your time begins, the yellow light comes on when you have 30 seconds left, and the red light comes on when your time is up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Our microphones are very sensitive and able to pick up your voices. Therefore, we respectfully request that you do not try to adjust them. On the front of the podium, you will find a button that allows you to raise or lower the podium if necessary. State law prohibits the City Council from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to the City Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Parker left, is that right?
I don't see Mr. Parker.
Yes, he gave me a note that he couldn't stay any longer.
Thank you. Jim Barletta?
Mayor Paris, members of the council, city manager, and staff, good evening. I'd like to talk about water tonight that hasn't been talked too much lately, and mainly not the quantity, but the quality of it. Mainly chloramines. That's coming if we don't do anything about it. I understand that the LA County Water Works is going to be making a decision possibly next month. And they're going to be talking about it, and I really believe that if nothing is said and done to stop it or speak out against it, that they're going to go with the chloramines, only because it's a cheaper way to go. I think that's poison. You wouldn't take a glass of ammonia and drink it. You wouldn't even want to drink a doggone shot glass full of it. Yet, they got experts out there that'll tell you the stuff is safe to drink. They want to put it in their drinking water. That's going to affect everybody in this valley if it goes through. And I don't know of any one water company that is in favor of this nonsense. But if we don't do something about it, it just will probably go through. I'd hate to be sitting on that board that's going to make the decision, and a question come up, so how do the guys at Lancaster feel about it? If there is no opposition, how do you think they're going to vote? Hey, well, they don't care. So, you're going to get experts going to come before you, and they're going to tell you that, studies been done, it's not going to hurt you, it's just a little bit. Well, you know what? You drink a little bit now, hour later you take another glass of water, and pretty soon you take another glass of water. Later on today you get in the shower, your body's going to absorb it. Then you wonder why people get sick. We already have one poison in the water, and that's chlorine. Do we have to have another one? Especially when there is a alternative, which is the granulated carbon. So what I'm asking of this council, to please put this item on your agenda as soon as you can and take a position on it, please. Now, LA County is supposed to be surveying their customers. Well, It depends how it's going to be presented and how the votes of people are going to vote. If they just say, well, it's going to cost you more to do it this way than to do it that way, and don't explain it to it, how do you think they're going to vote? And bear in mind that the Lancaster area is L.A. County's biggest customers up here. This is their area. This is their biggest area, city of Lancaster. So they're going to be looking how you folks feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would invite any council member who wants to put that on the agenda, feel free to do so.
I had a question for Mr. Neal. I know we spoke about it a while back, is that when we had the meeting here in the council on chloramines, that I think it was Adam Ariki that was here?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that was my suggestion, was that he poll the customers, and then you and I spoke about it about 30 days ago. Have you heard any more?
Yes, I've been in conversation with LA County Waterworks. My understanding is they're going to hold public meetings. One of them will be here in our council chambers. I believe it's scheduled for December.
Natalia, run a poll on that this week. Well, let's see.
Mm-hmm.
That I was present, that we would do that before that they would make any kind of decisions.
Right, right.
Do we know when they're estimated to make a decision, if they're going to have a public workshop in December?
My conversations with Adam have been that they'll conduct a series of public meetings, and then they will take that back to the Board of Supervisors and let the Board of Supervisors decide. But he didn't give me a time frame.
What are the academics saying about this? I mean, what does UCLA say? What does USC say? What are the academics saying?
You know, I've done a little research on this, and I don't claim to be an expert, and I know there's evidence on both sides.
What's the peer-reviewed research say?
I'm sorry?
Is there any peer-reviewed research?
I believe you're going to find evidence on both sides, and really, I think there's going to be the GAC. I think you're going to find cleans out a lot of different kinds of chemicals, but you're also going to find that chloramines are used widely and are a lot less expensive. So I think
what's
that's
the longest range that any municipality has used it? Do you know? I know I'm firing stuff at you. It's totally unfair to do this to you like this. But are there any long-range studies?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Pierce, I will tell you that I spoke to Randy Williams at length about this in the past, and I'm really a little disappointed that Mr. Ariki or someone from the county, because, my goodness, that's been well over a year ago that we had that meeting here. The other thing was that I contacted Children's Hospital because my granddaughter has had a liver transplant, and so she's my first concern. And the information came back that said it would not be harmful to her. But when you hear, you know, that...
Is that because that was your liver, or... No, I'm sorry.
It's probably because I am so ornery, and that she only needed a very small part of my liver in order to be very healthy, praise the Lord. But...
She gave up her liver to her granddaughter. I mean,
I only gave a little
heroic.
piece of liver to my granddaughter. But to say that, you know, Children's Hospital came back and their research said that it would not harm her was very important to me. And when someone says, you know, they're going to put ammonia in your water, and I'm still not sold, okay, but isn't there arsenic in our water? I mean, isn't there small amounts of arsenic in the water? And it is, yes, it's natural, but I mean, when you say arsenic...
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. But I'd really like to hear what the county has to say, that they promised that over a year ago, and we still haven't seen anything. So, and I appreciate your help.
Yes, ma'am.
The other thing I think we ought to consider too is this ultimately is a Board of Supervisor decision. And I mean, to say it's a water board, what we're really talking about is the Board of Supervisors. And I'm a little uncomfortable with that decision being, spread around. I mean, we all have to make hard decisions. It's a hard decision that the Board of Supervisors has to make, for whatever that's worth. Okay, Vice Mayor Smith or Council Member Marcus, what is this? Oh, the Antelope Valley Transit Authority. And anything else you have to report?
We have a AVTA report in there. I think it's not a big deal if you've read it. Any questions on it? There is one report on there that's not on there. You're supposed to report any traveling that you've done for the city. I went down to Ventura with one of our staff members for a couple days for the California Downtown Association, because we're doing so much downtown, and we brought back in just some amazing things, the virtual reality tour, a lot of just great ideas that we've given staff, and I've talked to the mayor about, that you might be seeing in the near future that's just going to really just bring about Destination Lancaster and the Boulevard and everything else. And so it was a very, very informative trip, not only on branding, but new technologies and just some really neat stuff. So that was a very, very successful seminar.
Thank you. Anything else?
I just want to say that it seems like practically every other day we're down at downtown Lancaster doing something new, opening a new restaurant, looking over the artist loft. The Grand Prix was outstanding. The staff did a wonderful job. We actually came in the morning, had to leave for the afternoon, and came back for the antique cars in the evening, and the streets were still packed. And it was pretty exciting. Giannini's is open. The Boulevard Express, great food. It's I'm excited about what's going to happen within the next year, and can't say enough about it. But things are certainly looking up, and we run into people who are coming into Lancaster to shop. And my husband and I ran into a couple that came from Riverside, and we're bragging on it, and we couldn't tell them enough about what else they could look forward to in Lancaster. So, and especially the Grand Prix, you guys did an excellent job, and thank you to our deputies because everybody was safe. I didn't hear any problems at all.
No, it was.
Mark hurt his neck.
What do you call that? The wambulance? You guys call the wambulance?
Called the wambulance.
We had just to add what Sherry said. We had a couple people. I met a couple people that were that have only been in California maybe about 6-7 months from New York, right? And it's within our target audience that we're looking at for downtown Lancaster and the Boulevard and the branding and everything there. And I tell people, I know in my gut, a couple of years from now, people in L.A. will say, hey, let's go up to the Boulevard this afternoon, in Lancaster to hang out, because it's going to be so incredible up here. Now, these two, I got it from about 2 or 3 people, and they're down from L.A., and they came up here for the Grand Prix, and they said, gosh, you have this restaurant, you have this, and we don't have hardly anything compared to what it's going to look like next year. They said, this is only an hour away. That's what they said. So cool. And that's the target audience. So, well, hey, I have something else. It's council agenda. Not council agenda, but it's council agency comments that we bring up new stuff and everything. And Mr. Rodeo left. I'd probably get him to get a stack of speaker cards for next time on this item. But, I can tell you that our calendar for the council, and every one of you know, because you get every calendar event too, we get a plethora of calendar events of what we get. I mean, it's just incredible. In fact, I think when Frank Roberts and Henry Hearns are both retired and putting in about 50, 60, 70 hours a week, both can't keep up with everything that they that they did. I mean, I put in, we joke about it, but, I put in at least 30 hours a week here at the city and going to things and events, and there's so much out there in the community that we need to, there's meetings, there's different organizations, there's, the AV Board of Trade meetings, in order for us to really, and the mayor especially, to get a grasp on what's going on in the citizen, with the citizens, and keeping engaged. It's very difficult. I know we have a couple council members that work full-time, and you work double full-time, I know, with your region and everything, and Sherry and I are busy. So this is my proposal, is that I've talked it over with the mayor, and I know some mayors have this, and it would be like I guess you could call it a deputy mayor that he would appoint, and it would be confirmed by the council, and that when the mayor can't make it to things, meetings and everything, meetings with community, it might be a hospital board meeting, it might be whatever's going up that the mayor is invited to take input or listen or be part of. I mean, there's a whole ton of meetings all the time, that this person could actually be there instead. Now, this would not take the place of any elected official that would show up if there's any ceremonial thing to be done, but this would help the mayor, who's also extremely busy, like some of us, to be able to keep abreast of everything. So I'd like to put that forward for us to bring back something next time to discuss and vote on.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That was at the next meeting? Did you want that at the next meeting? Okay. Can you do that then? That wasn't the most...
Oh, such enthusiasm.
We do have a few additional...
Just thinking about everything that I've got to get done for the next two meetings, so...
We have one that we have 4 things that we promised you for next meeting. If one of them slips, we'll let you know well ahead of time.
That's a pretty boilerplate kind of one. We've done some other ones similar to that, so.
Sure.
Just copy and paste in Word, change the names.
It doesn't, it doesn't have to be complex, but I do want some help. Is okay. And when they go in a room, I want them to have some juice so that they're able to accomplish something. All right.
The one thing, if I could just add to that, we have elected officials that can go to things, but it's like the Board of Supervisors. Senator Runner, Assemblyman Knight. All of them have some kind of field rep, some kind of somebody that goes in their state, to collect information and represent them. And I know that we're changing, as the mayor said, we're recreating a mid-sized city and moving forward and talking about even a charter. And so, I think it's important.
Thank you.
Is this just a volunteer position? Someone would be appointed, but it's not a paid position.
Well, as long as I'm the mayor, I'll pay for them. I'll pay them myself. But it would certainly always be within the council's purview to make it a paid position down the road. But in order to be effective, to be more effective, it would. I don't think it would necessarily make the job easier. It would just make it more effective. Okay. There's things out there I'm missing because I just can't go to them, and it's not something. You all don't work for me. I can't send you. I need somebody I can send. If SCAG's meeting and I can't be there, I want somebody there. I want to know what's happening out there and what the city should be pushing and what perhaps we shouldn't be pushing. Okay. And it would also have to be somebody that you all agree with. I don't, because they'll be, in some respect, representing the city. Okay. Good. Okay, also, we've talked about becoming a charter city for a while, and we've talked to staff and city attorney to bring back something to consider. That will be on the agenda the next meeting. If anybody has something they want to have us consider within that charter, now's the time, because we're on a short string as to when we can approve it and put it before the voters, right?
Council would have to essentially approve it for inclusion in the resolutions that are going to be before you in November 10th. So you'd have to approve it at the 27th.
Right. It's something that I started thinking about when David Paul was running for mayor. He understood that really well and got me thinking about it. And then when Palmdale did it, what I don't want to be is at a disadvantage, because as much as we'd like to all be working together, there is some competitive element to what we're doing, and I do not want to be in a weaker position. Okay, anything else? We have no closed session items. So we will adjourn in memory of Joella Wilson. That's Earl Wilson's wife, who is the board member at the Antelope Valley Community College. Joella passed away on September 26th. Her contributions to Antelope Valley included, but were not limited to, working as a teacher for the Lancaster School District for 22 years, a guidance counselor at Antelope Valley High School for 14 years, a volunteer mentor and substitute at the guidance office, and she was the recipient of the 1997 Lifetime Distinguished Service Award. In addition, she was Earl Wilson's wife and supported him as he has countless hours of public service that took him away from the home. And so we're adjourning the meeting in memory of her. We're adjourned until Tuesday, October 27th, 2009 at 5 p.m. Carol, my day is done and I'm coming home. So warm up the dinner. I'm hungry.